Good morning, everyone. It's rather quite, there's a change in time. Anyway, we'll be going according to the program. Let us not be binded by the time schedule. We will not be strictly following the time shown in the program leaflet, but anyway, we'll be going according to the program. May I request Professor Charles, Manager, to come on the stage here, please, and Mr. Ram Prasad. And Dean of MZU, Dewakar Tiwari. I think he's just wait for a while. Let me introduce myself. I'm Mizoram Vice President of the Mizoram Architects Forum. And let me introduce the office bearers of the Mizoram Architects Forum. Our President, Mrs. Ladeng Zwali. Thank you. Secretary, Architect Darwakima. Joint Secretary, Architect Rossi Lalom Oma. I think he's outside, busy with the, with the program. Okay, anyway. And Treasurer, Miss Grace Lalom Zwali. Grace will be attending soon, okay? And Finance Secretary, Miss Sylvia. Thank you. And all members of the Executive Committee, may I request to stand up from the seat, please. Thank you. It is my pleasant duty to welcome you all to this program, Architects Meet 2016, ever held for the first time in Mizoram. This event, Architects Meet, was put in the agenda last year in the Executive Committee and was accepted with great enthusiasm to go ahead with the program, with this event. With the hard work and dedication of the organizing committee, and members of the various subcommittees, this event could have been achieved. In fact, Mizoram Architects Forum has been organizing this building material and technology exhibition for the past 10 years. Let me explain briefly the main theme of this event. It is mainly to motivate architects, students, planners, and also to educate the people the importance and significance of architecture. As Mizoram is one of the youngest and fastest developing state in India, we as architects have a great responsibility for the state in bringing the development of the state. And in fact, we have a great expectation from our speaker here on the subject that we will be listening shortly. And MF was formed in the year 2000 with just merely 15 architects, 15 to be precise, at the time. And now we are about 50 plus 15 going. From that year onwards to this day, we took tremendous steps and whatever necessary steps required and efforts in helping the state, educating, showing the importance of architecture, which we believe will be benefited by the people of Mizoram. Let me conclude with that. Now, on behalf of Mizoram Architects Forum, I welcome all delegates, participants, the dean, the government organizations, from the press, people from the press who has attended this program. It's a privilege and it's very fortunate to have one of the most renowned architects of this country as the speaker to listen to his lecture. A long-pending desire has been fulfilled today with the presence of Professor Christopher Charles Benninger in our midst. I welcome you, sir. Let us give a round of applause to our speaker, Professor Christopher Charles Benninger. once again, welcome everyone present. I hope we will have a good time. Thank you. Now, may I call upon the Dean, Diwakar Tiwari, Dean of Fine Arts, Architecture and Fashion Technology, MZU, to address the audience.
Good morning to everyone. The chairman of this program, the architect Mr. Mal Swamkima, Vice President of Mizoram Architect Forum, Professor Baninger, the renowned architect who is with us, Professor Bello, who is supposed to come soon and he'll be here tomorrow, the President of the Architect Forum, Kijwali, Chief Architect, Mizoram Government Pu George, the faculties, the students, other dignitaries, the other architects, those who are working here or outside of this state, ladies and gentlemen. This is a great privilege for the Mizoram University that along with the Architect Forum of the Mizoram, we are organizing such an architect meet, which is the first time in this state is going to be held, and definitely is going to be benefited to everyone, not only the students of the Mizoram University, but the other architects, those who are involved in the related activities in this state. Before I say a few words related to the architect meet, I would like to just briefly introduce, since many are from outside, about the Mizoram University. So this are about this school or even the department. The Mizoram University, as we all know, that was established in 2001, and now we are having the 8 schools in this Mizoram University. And out of that 8 schools, we are having almost exactly the 32 academic departments. And the recent developments and other things which might have seen outside, most of the academic departments are the permanent building and everything is in place right now. And few are still under construction, but I believe that by the end of this year or the next year, all the academic departments will be completed. About this school, I say that in principle, the UGC, because our setup is a different type of setup, and our approach is a different approach. So we are, as you know, that concerned or related with the University Grant Commission along with the MHRD. So in the 11th plan, if I remember that this school was accepted or approved by the UGC, and in that school there were the 3 departments they have in principle accepted, that is the fine arts, the architecture and the fashion technology. But the name was given, but they have sanctioned only the architecture. So the architecture department, it has come in place. The 2 departments, the fine arts and the fashion technology, is yet to come, and we are trying this plan, the 13th plan, that hopefully we'll get it. So once we'll get it, then only this school will be the full-fledged school. Otherwise, I can say that it's the half school. Okay, the single department is there. And in this department, the sanctioned positions that we got, that is the 1 professor and the 2 associate professors and the 3 assistant professors. All these 3 assistant professors, they have been appointed, and they are the young, and you might have met. I can just tell the names of that. Miss Sylvia, she is heading the department, and then Miss Emeline, and recently 1 boy, he joined, Mr. Sivaji, he is the 3rd assistant professor. Unfortunately, I can say that at the higher positions, we have advertised the positions, but we are yet to fill that position, since we are not getting the applications for the professor or the assistant professor. That is why I am taking care of the deanship of this school. And the department, it came into existence 2013, and the second batch, this year we have taken the admission in the second batch. If I am correct, that altogether 20 to 21 students are there in the department. This is a very young department, and the intake capacity is the 30, and we are taking the admissions through the two different ways. The one is that CSAB, that is the JE, through that we are taking the admissions, and then the 60% and 40% we are taking our own test along with the NETA clearing. Once they are clearing this NETA, then they are getting the admission. So this is the way by which we are taking the admissions. Still, we are not getting, we are unable to fill all the seats which is sanctioned by the UGC. So this is the situation of this young department. Within just, I can say, 1.5 years of the span of the department existence, arranging such a big event is remarkable. Of course, there was a great help from the Mizoram, the Architect Forum. So my personal opinion is always that we should have to work together along with the architect, the forum which is in existence in the state, so that for the better development of the department, not only the department, but for the particular state. And few things that I would like to mention here about the university, that the university has been accredited by the National Accreditation Board, that is and it was graded with the grade A, which is a significant, the achievement for that young university. And last year, the first time in this country that the NIRF, National Institutional Ranking Framework, they have ranked the universities. So there was almost, I can say, 3,500 the universities, they have been registered and they have been ranked. So the Mizoram University got the rank 51. So that is also achievement for this university. So these are not only these two, there are several national and international collaborations that we are having in this university. In my own department, we are having a collaboration and MOU and with the Korean universities, and there are significant achievements that we received along with the Mizoram University and that other university. And we are having some more the MOUs with several foreign countries, including the USA and all that. And we are trying to achieve the goals which is set by the university or set by the school or the department. If we come to the particular meet, the architect meet. So when I was discussing, I thought that what would be the mandate of the meet. So I was thinking that, of course, a rigorous, or I can say a kind of the interactions with the senior architects like Professor Benninger and the other people. So our the architects, they will be, have a better interactions with those people, or will be having a better interaction with the universities and the other architects, those who are working here. In addition to that, is it possible that to have a rigorous workshop or kind of the training program which can help us? And as we know that the Government of India program and all that, that is the smart cities and all that, why our Mizoram, or the Aizawl is not included, that how the things can be helped, or how this kind of the training programs can help so to work towards that the smart cities and to come in that race, and that maybe in next we will be included in that smart cities. So that I was just thinking that the architecture, since I'm not related to the Department of Architecture, so I was thinking whenever it comes in our mind, we just feel that it's a nice fancy design or good design, that is the only architect. But I don't think it is the only thing that the architect they have to do. The architect, they have to work, I feel that, into the 2-3 different aspects, which is, if I am not wrong, that the one is very important, that's the planning, and the second is, which is very important, that is the disaster management, which is very important for this particular stage. And this architect work, which I feel that it is the location specific. We cannot have a same planning, we cannot have the main, the same architectural design for the all different places. So it becomes, it is I feel that it may be from place to place, it is going to vary or it is going to change, isn't it? So how the architectural can work or can be integrated, I feel that it has to be integrated with the different departments or with the different, the engineering departments. Say for example, the civil engineering, which is more important. Say for example, if I can say that the soil engineering also, the environmental engineering, how these architects can help in the sustainable the development and all that. When I was attending a conference outside abroad, I was just, one of the environmental engineer, he was talking about a concept of the sponge city. So I was wondered about that. This was the concept of the sponge city. And then later on, I realized, I came to know that it is one of the aspects, and that is how to, the harvest or how to work on where the flooding and other things are going on. So closely they are working. The environmental engineer, the civil engineering, along with the architects, they are closely working, and they are trying to put a certain, the technology out by the certain ways by which the, such kind of the cities can be developed. And now this concept is very common, not only in China, but in a different places. I just give an example, like in USA, they are having this, the concept of, they call it the low impact development. In UK, they are having the concept of the sustainable drainage system. So how the architects can, integrate with such kind of activities for a better development or the sustainable development of the society or the city or the society and all that. So I feel that such kind of the meet or such kind of the workshop or the training program may help in a longer way for a better development of the state and all that. I'll not take much time. With these few words, I would like to conclude. Thank you very much.
Now, may I request all of us to be back on the front seat, please? Yes, we'll be having an audio and visual introduction of our speaker from the projector here at the back stage here. And we'll be showing the introduction of our speaker, Professor Christopher Benninger.
Born in 1942, Professor Christopher Charles Benninger grew up in America, where he was influenced by Frank Lloyd Wright's organic architecture as a boy. He studied urban planning at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and architecture at Harvard University, where he later was a professor of architecture at the Graduate School of Design. He came to India on a Fulbright fellowship in 1968, and later as a Ford Foundation consultant to set up the School of Planning at Ahmedabad, jointly with Padma Shri Balkrishna V. Doshi. In 1976, he founded the Center for Development Studies and Activities at Pune and headed the institute for 20 years. Professor Benninger has three different approaches to the profession of architects: as an institution builder and professor, as a UN and World Bank consultant, advising many governments and pioneering school planning, designing several thousands of low-cost housing, and as a master architect, designing many modern institutions. He recently won the Golden Architect Award for Lifetime Achievement. Only 5 other architects have been given this recognition. He was conferred the Great Master Architect Award for 2008 by J.K. Cement, and this award was given by the President of India. His firm, Christopher Charles Benninger Architects, has a team of 35 professionals with studios in Pune and Thimphu. Welcome, Sir Christopher Charles Benninger.
Okay, now we'll have a book introduction, launching of this book. Architect Ram Prasad will be organizing this. And he's the Managing Director, MD, of Christopher Charles Benninger Architects Private Limited, CCBA. And he's the author of the book. And also he shall call upon our speaker, Professor Charles Benninger, for a lecture whenever he finds it convenient. Let us welcome Architect Ram Prasad.
Good afternoon. I suppose it's beyond 12 o'clock already. Thank you, Emilien, for chasing me for the last 1 year to get us over here. Thank you, Professor Tiwari, for those insightful thoughts on smart cities as well as on contextual architecture. We do agree that every region must display its own honest expression of architecture. And I thank all the 80 people sitting over here. I did count. That means all the people who have studied architecture or studying architecture are here, which encourages us to do a better presentation. You got a lovely city. Aizawl is a beautiful place. Both Professor Christopher Benninger and I have been able to catch up on our sleep. We slept 12 hours. We feel very fresh. And we are staying in a lovely place designed by our friend Joe. Thank you very much for hosting us. I think it was worth that 1 year of chase, Emilien, to get us over here. We feel as if we have known this place for a very long time. We feel that we have made friends over here that would call us again and again. Now, I happen to be an author of this book, along with one of my friends who's an Italian lady. She's the co-author who hasn't been over here for lack of time. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to take you through the journey of making of this book. First of all, am I audible at all? Yeah. My friend, are you going to run the presentation for me? Yeah. From the time Thames and Hudson in 1996 published a book on the works of Charles Courier, we have witnessed a few books that contributed to the collection of literature on or about architecture in India. If one has to reflect, not more than 20 books were published since independence on the state of architecture and urbanism in India. 20 years later, Christopher Benninger, Architecture for Modern India, published by Schira Rizzoli from Milan and New York, has set on its journey to significantly contribute to the practice of architecture. The book was released in Manhattan at the hands of Professor Kenneth Frampton, arguably the most important theorist of architecture in our times. We have witnessed Letters to Young Architects topping the best-selling non-fiction books chart for about 18 weeks. 5 years back, when this book was launched, we pioneered the multi-city launch. This reach-out program has made this book available to the remotest corners of India. Many times, a book is released in one of the metro cities and the rest of the country is unaware of its existence. Every student and architect came to know about this book. This led to inquiries of it being translated into other languages also. Today, the book is being translated into Malayalam, Tamil, Bengali, Hindi, Arabic, apart from being already translated into Chinese and Gujarati. The book sold more than 17,000 copies over the 4 print runs, addressing contemporary issues on education, urbanism, and the practice of architecture in our part of the world. This book couldn't have been popular without your support and promotion. It is time, once again, for us to come together to celebrate the birth of this new book. Friends, celebration, be it a marriage ceremony or a birth of a child or some success, has never been in isolation. Your constant support and good wishes has allowed us to contribute in more than one manner to the growth of our profession. Let me take you through the journey of making of this book. We at CCBA, which stands for Christopher Charles Benninger Architects, document our projects thoroughly. This book happened very quickly. Professor Benninger was invited to give a talk in Dhaka a year and a half back. It so happened, sitting in the audience was the editor of Skira, Rosa Mario Flavio, who came for a book release on the works of architect Rafiq Azam there, hosted by the Bengal Foundation. To my great surprise, she told the idea of doing a book on Benninger's work after witnessing his talk, which led her to visit Pune, where we stay, see a few of our projects, and a contract being signed. It was just 3 months we got to put the book together. Our team in the office did the layout and composed the books. My colleagues took several photographs, adding to the collection of photographs that I have taken over the past 20 years. In 3 months, we wrote freshly all the content to suit the format of the book, rephotographed some projects, did layout, and handed over to Skira Rizzoli in Milan. We were also lucky to have the goodwill of Fumihiko Maki, Pritzker Prize winner and a master architect from Japan, who taught Benninger at Harvard, along with Suha Özkan, who's from Turkey, who ran very successfully the Aga Khan Awards program for over 30 years, along with Professor Liane Lefebvre from Vienna and Delft, who jumped into the opportunity to contribute their essays, as they found there was a right reason for them to voice their opinions on the theory and practice of architecture in a part of the world that was growing faster. Professor Liane Lefebvre specifically made her argument of the shift from the West and Northern Hemisphere to the global South and East, where 3/4 of the world's population resides, and how Benninger was pioneering social architecture that was more relevant than the upside-down iconic projects coming up in America and Europe. Suha Özkan mentions in his essays how Benninger stuck onto his social commitment and searched for cultural identities both in India and Bhutan while designing the projects, as against mimicking aimlessly some imagery from the Western world as suitable solutions to our projects. Maki-san categorically refers to how Benninger has married the serendipity of people's joys and sorrows with the journey that one takes using spaces, thereby influencing the journey we all share. Very profound observation indeed. With such good wills and wishes, the book started its journey. This large format monograph traces architectural practice through Benninger's works over the past 5 decades of economic transformation and social change. Benninger's experiences begin in the socialist closed economic era when India was a rural society. It blends into the present free market urban society of the world's largest global economy. Each of Benninger's creations, whether in urban planning or architecture, is a benchmark of India's evolving character and persona. This book has about 400 pages, about 800 color photographs, several hundred drawings and text supporting each and every project to serve the purpose of education and to education to both students and those who practice. For those who are new to the subject of architecture, it is a visual treat and a medium of understanding good architecture. Every project begins with a location map to understand the context and urban pattern of the location, with a central image like in this Cochin refinery project, where it is important to understand the relevance of the backwaters and the salubrious surroundings, yet managing the humid hot climate with shading devices like the louvers. In this page, as you can see, College of Engineering, Girls Hostel Building celebrates the honest expression of form finish concrete used in the coffered ceilings, supported by the isometric plans of the building. In the subsequent pages, there was a breakaway from the heaviness of concrete to mimic the ocean ships that seamlessly float over the waters, as seen in the wavy north facade of the administrative building of the Samudra Institute of Maritime Studies at Lonavala, supported by the study models that went into making of this project into reality. I must thank our in-house model maker, Shri Krishnaji, and his partner for helping us see what we were envisioning. In the next section, we went out of the box to make factories equally beautiful by using modern metal jalis to subdue the mechanical nature of factories in Forbes Marshall Greenfield factory in Chakan near Pune. That allowed it to be qualified as one of the top places to work, competing with other corporate offices. The book also takes one through the journey of what all goes as studies and changes in master planning for the Ajim Premji University in Bengaluru to show the evolution of an institute. As this section demonstrates the unique idea of comparing one footprint with another one to understand the scale of each and every project covered in the book, supported by graphical representation of the facades that converge and depart from each other at the same time. The last but the most important aspect of this book is the inclusion of these kind of double folds to give that grandness that the project demands or deserves. Perhaps this is one of the few books in the world on architecture that has attempted to do these double spreads. So friends, this book is not just a visual treat, but in the world of bookmaking, it has set some benchmarks, and we are happy to share our joy with all of you today. We recognize this book must travel the entire country and overseas, and that made it relevant to us to bring this book to a forgotten rural part of Maharashtra like Udgir, where statesmen like Shivraj Patilji took his valuable time to release the book amongst thousands of rural brothers and sisters of our country, amongst those aspiring young men and women who wanted to excel in life. Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh, Shri Chandrababu Naidu, as much as a visionary, took no time to endorse the book, realizing what will build his new capital at Amaravati is nothing but architecture. Such is the great role of architecture in building our country now. Honorable Minister Shri Venkaiah Naidu, as you can see, has greatly emphasized the importance of urbanization as part of his current administration. The former Prime Minister of Bhutan, the proponent of gross national happiness, Limpo Jigme, took no time to make his claim that this book should be an ambassador of taking the modern architecture of his country to the rest of the world. Several exponents of the world of architecture, Pritzker Prize winners such as Toyo Ito from Japan, Tokyo, Peter Cook from London, UK, Kerry Hill from Singapore, Woha Architects from Singapore, Maki from Tokyo, Richard Rogers from London, and our own Doshiji found themselves visiting the pages of this book. One of the senior most architects of India, Bruno D'Souza from Goa, took no time to get out of his house at the age of 92 to release this book in Goa. Peter Rich from South Africa, along with Shri Divya Kush, President of Indian Institute of Architects, accommodated this book as part of the IIA Annual Awards in Calicut a few months back. As I conclude, this newborn has got blessings of the near and dear, and the wishes to travel its own journey. As I always say, friends, architecture is a teamwork. It is collaborative, it is communicative, and it's creative at the same time. This book has memories of our team from 20 years back to the memories of those who are with us now. We have grown with them. We have laughed and shared our sorrows and joys together. What could be a great way to immortalize all those feelings? This book is a testament to the great journey we took 20 years back, along with the person who had made India his home. And in his journey lies our sub-journeys, our learnings, our emotions, and our triumphs. Hence, this is a celebration of teamwork. Thank you very much. May I request the President of Mizoram Architects Forum, Christopher Benninger, and Professor Tiwari to come on the stage to unveil the book, please. May I request Professor Benninger to stay back on the stage to continue with his presentation. In this presentation, we plan to show in detail about 7 projects that will run for about 45 to 50 minutes. And he's going to go through all these projects. And the presentation has been made with an idea of like giving an expose to the projects that range from a different scale, the smallest to the largest, and with regional differences, and the differences being in their functions also. Professor Benninger.
Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here. This is my second visit to Mizoram. The last one was in 1994. I must say that ISIL has changed tremendously over those years. And I was very happy to receive an invitation because I love Mizoram. I think that ISIL is a city which is deeply challenged. It could become a great city, it could fall into despair. So I think having the School of Architecture here at this time of history and having you architects here to think about the future of this state is very important. Now I was going to ask the technical people if they can turn off these, there's 2 huge bright lights. I don't know how Professor Tiwari could survive these 2 lights. Is it possible to turn that, at least that one off? Is there anybody here from the technical side? Maybe not. Maybe this gentleman can manage it. Now, I'm going to have to sort of turn a little bit just so that I can see which slide is up there. Maybe I'll turn this. See, architects always want to change their environments. Okay, now you can leave the light on because I can't even see it. See, I came to India as a student. Probably the age of some of the senior students here are younger graduates. I came to India in 1968 on a Fulbright fellowship, and I was attracted to come to India because of some of these buildings, like in Ahmedabad. I came to Ahmedabad to the Mill Owners Association by Le Corbusier. And what interested me about this building was it used the sloped walls to stop the sun coming in the window. It planted plants inside the wall. This is a building built in the 1960s, and today people talk about green buildings and planting plants in the walls of the building as if it's the newest thing. And then this ramp, which you could walk up through the building, created movement in the building. So this was an exciting reason to come to Ahmedabad. There must have been 5 buildings by Le Corbusier in Ahmedabad. And then the next building I'm showing you is by Louis Kahn. Who's shifting that? Okay, Rama's there. Now, you probably all know this building. It's called the Indian Institute of Management at Ahmedabad, designed by the very famous architect Louis Kahn, who also did the Parliament building in Dhaka. And he was a true genius, a professor at the University of Pennsylvania, and I wanted to come and see this building. So the Louis Kahn complex and the Corbusier buildings were reasons that I came. But when I came to Ahmedabad, if you see the next picture, it's the Gandhi Ashram by Charles Courier. Now, this building is much smaller than either of the two previous ones, but it introduced me to something interesting. It falls in the same language as the previous two. It's modern architecture. It's got exposed concrete, exposed brick, but it has a lot of Indian ideas like the tile roof, like the louvers in the wall, and it has a connection between the inside and outside, having verandas and elements like that. And it also has human scale. The other two buildings are monumental buildings, and I loved this building because of its human scale, and it attracted me more and more to India. And then the next building you may all know is the School of Architecture at Ahmedabad, designed by Balkrishna Doshi. I actually think this is one of his most important works. Again, these skylights face north to protect from the sun. It's got exposed concrete and brick, which he learned from Le Corbusier. He was a student of Le Corbusier. And I loved this building, and this is where I worked for a year from 1968-69. In fact, I have the challenge now to the right of this building. I'm building a very large new building for Sept University. So I have the daunting problem of building a new building next to my guru's building, and Doshi's running 90 years old now, and he's a good friend of mine. And I know whatever I design, he will not like that. So, but it doesn't bother me too much, because one has to learn to love your gurus and to fight with them also. So that's the kind of relation we have. So I was drawn to India by these institutions, mainly institutions, and the architecture here. And definitely Ahmedabad was a hotbed of architecture, and that's what we should make of Aizawl. So if you look at the next building, I'm sorry, it's actually a slide. I'm going to talk to you about something. I just used the word the architect in the city, where I look at the architect having different functions entering the city. Sometimes we do urban infills, we do urban prototypes, urban restructuring, urban enclaves, urban peripheral projects, industrial satellites, and even sacred urban precincts, which I'll show you what I mean by that at the end. So the first project I'm showing you is in Ahmedabad. It's the Alliance Française. It's an infill in an existing campus. It's put back in the corner of an existing 100-year-old campus. You all know where Ahmedabad is, perhaps. It's up in Gujarat. Our Prime Minister spent a lot of time there, so you probably heard about it through him. It's on an old river. Across the river on the right, there's incidentally an old walled city, medieval city, and on the left where our project is, about 100 years ago, people started migrating across the river when the first bridge was built. And this is a map, 1924. You can see the walled city was the main thing. This is what it looked like in 2001. The river was there were no flyovers, and now in 2015, you can see flyovers, and there's this big riverfront development project by Bimal Patel. So if we look closely at the site, there's the two vertical buildings are an old theological, it's actually a Christian theological college, and they gave space for Alliance Française to build their building. I could have put it in the front, right on the road, and showed off my work to the public, but I thought, let me go back in the corner and use the two ends of two buildings to create a small public domain. Now, in all the projects I'm going to show you, creating a public space is very important. See, I think we architects have to create inclusiveness. We have to create places like inside that circle, a little public square where the public has free access. They can come and meet there, talk, and interact. So if we look closely at the design of Alliance Française, you want to go to the next one, Ron? Okay. Now, I'll just tell you a little bit about this building while he's doing that. This is a building which is only 2,700 square feet. And it's a building which has no windows on the south facade, no windows on the east facade or the west facade. Why? In Ahmedabad, the temperature goes up to 46 degrees in April, May. It's extremely hot. And fortunately, it's also dry, so you don't sweat that much. But it's a very hot and sunny climate. So in this building, the attempt was to create skylights which face north. I could say maybe even I learned that trick from Doshi's School of Architecture, but in this one maybe I exploited the north-facing skylights a little more. And then I worked on a structural system which had beams 5 feet on center. And those beams you can see in the skylight, there's divisions which are 5 feet on center. And then the 5 feet on center fit into a grid. All of these spaces are made up of 15-foot by 15-foot grids. So you start with 15 feet by 15 feet in the plan. You come down to 5-foot by 5-foot beams. If we look at the elevation, you'll see 7.5 by 7.5 foot pivoting doors. And then we have ventilators to let hot air out, which are 2.5 by 2.5. So it kind of, as students of architecture, if you have a module like that, 2.5 feet times 2 is 5, add 2.5 to 5 is 7.5, 15. It's an easy system to work with. It works with the structure, it works with the skylights, and it works with the facade. So here you can see that the only place there are windows is on the north, where the skylight drops down onto the north elevation, and 2 toilets are plugged in. I didn't want to stick the toilets in the plan, because if you architects know when you're drawing plans, you stick a toilet in, suddenly it becomes a little tiny box in a beautiful big space. So I didn't want to destroy the spaces. So actually this building looks complex, but it's very simple. This is an isometric. Faculty of Architecture, please make your students do, this is called an exploded isometric. In an exploded isometric, you can see the structure, you can see the spaces, and you can see how the whole building works together. Now this is the south facade, southwest facade. The doors are tucked back in where they get a little bit of shade. There are no windows, there are just the ventilators. Another point, there are not more than 5 materials in this building. There's concrete, brick, MS steel, some glass, and very little wood. I'm trying to even think maybe the 2 doors into the toilets have wood panels in them. But it's very simple. A little bit of codestone trimming around the IPS floor. IPS floor means Indian pattern stone. That's a fancy word for concrete floor. So back in those days, this floor is made of concrete, and I used strips of codestone in the concrete to align the 15-foot by 15-foot modules and to make skirting on the wall. But what I'm trying to say here is you don't need to use a lot of fancy material, reflecting glass, panels of aluminum, all kinds of junk materials which we're getting from, sorry to my Chinese friends, from China, which the Americans made very popular. We can use very simple materials here and get great architecture. So in the space here, you see that the light creates the space. Yes, we make forms and we put walls, but it's the light dropping from the top that creates the space. Now that column in the middle, actually it's in the middle of it's 15 feet in all directions. Why did I put it there? It's actually not structurally needed. A friend of mine went to Jaisalmer and he did a sketch of a very old mean hall in a large palace in Jaisalmer. And there was a column in the middle of that, and I asked him, why is that column there? And he said, see, when you move in the space, if the column is there, the walls behind look like they're moving. You move and the walls move because the column stays stationary. So I thought that was a great kinetic intervention into the space. By having this column in the middle of the space, it made the space move as you moved around the space. So that was an interesting kind of intervention. And then I used the same type of column to hold up mezzanine balconies that ran around the building. This is a building which is used as a multifunction cultural center, mainly exhibitions, lectures, some small lessons at that time when French were given there. And it was a very informal kind of space. You can see again it's brick, it's exposed concrete. These are the toilets. They have a small skylight over them. There's Indian WCs, as we call them, Marissa pans, and a basin in the building. Very simple. At that time, we had only one kind of glass. You could have it in transparent, which was wavy. You could have it blue, and I think you could have some sort of wire inside of it. So we didn't have many choices. Now, this is where I live, and Ram lives, and we run a studio, and we have an art gallery, and we have recreation facilities, a small lap pool, and a gymnasium on the ceiling. So it's in a city called Pune. Some of you would have been there. It's a big IT center, it's an automobile center, it's an educational center. I think we have 7 universities, quite large ones, and huge automobile factories, and some of the, I think TCS is the largest IT company in India. This is the location, look at that, 2004. This is the site where we live today and where we practice architecture. Just a little more than 10 years ago. Now look at it today. Now see, this is what's happening to our country. It's happening in Aizawl also. That when we bought the land, it was virtually an open field, and we started designing the building. There's a 100-foot road running in front of the plot, and we had to think of the future. What would happen when this 100-foot road comes? Interestingly, the 100-foot road, after all these years, still hasn't been built, so we have a kind of a jungly road and a big 100-foot right space in front of our building, but it will come, so we had to design for that. So that's where India House is. Now let me tell you why I call it an urban prototype. I wanted to build a traditional Indian house. Professor Tiwari would know these kind of houses, courtyard houses. In old cities, walled cities, you had a lane, you had a lovely big door, you walked through the door into a courtyard, and many times people had their business on one side and their office on the other side, inside a courtyard house, like the Havelis of Ahmedabad, the Wadas of Pune, Mahals in North India, and even in South India we had courtyard houses. I wanted to do that, but the government wouldn't let me share walls with the future neighbors. I couldn't get them to change the rules, so I had to leave setbacks, but I did achieve having a courtyard and an entrance with a large gate off the road. Now, meanwhile, if you see the next picture, all my friends wanted houses like this. They wanted an American road with taking 20% of the land. They wanted a lawn, and they always wanted Mexican grass. I found it very funny that they wanted American roads, Mexican grass, English cottages, and they wanted the house to be right in the middle of the site with a lawn around it, generally not well maintained. The funny thing is in America, they do these houses and everybody shares the lawns. So when you're walking down the street, you see vast green open space, but in India we all put walls around our house. So in the end, the whole thing becomes India by putting a big wall which is 6, 8, 10 feet tall. So when you're walking in the street, you just see walls. Now getting back to what I wanted to do, this is a house in Tamil Nadu. It's a Chettinar house. It's a community, a business community. And you can see in the back is the door, and you come into a courtyard, and on the left is his house, on the right is his office. And then on the roof, he's covered the roof because it's so sunny to give a little bit of control of how much light comes in. And I really like this house, and I think it's very typical of houses all over the plains. People of India live in houses like this, not the hill people, but it's a very typical kind of house. So this influenced me, and I love these doors. This is something you would find even today. If you go to a scrapyard in a big city, you can buy 100, 200-year-old doors that look like this for a small amount, relatively small amount of money. Ram and I found a door like this. It was made in Haryana in the Mughal period, around maybe 1775. A house was being torn down, and we bought a door for India House. So these are elements, the courtyard, the portal, not having windows on the outside, but having focus on the inside, that we wanted to use as a prototype. So in the next images, you can see the sketch I did back in 2008. These buildings weren't around me, but I realized my house is going to be surrounded by a jungle. It's like Dorpui Road, you know, you could, maybe 20 years there, you romantically would design a house, and you know what it looks like today. So the same thing is happening on my road. This is what it's like now. We're getting new rules are allowing 22-story towers, and even it's going to go up to 30 stories, so I'm getting multi-story buildings coming up. It's even higher than I thought in 2005. So I made a wall in the front, the wall facing the road. There are no windows at all because it's going to be very noisy and polluted. and I had a setback of 20 feet, so I could use that setback to make a promenade. I'll show later. You did see those black squares. Those are very dark glass, so the neighbors can't see in, and we get a little bit of light in the studios. This again is an isometric. It shows a courtyard in the middle, a house on the right, and an office on the left, and in the basement, under the podium, you have a very large art gallery of more than 5,000 square feet. It's the largest private art gallery in the city of Pune. And we call it India House. There's a wall protecting from the outside, because the outside is full of chaotic activities, a lot of construction workers, vendors, etc. So we made these nice wood doors coming between this space, and on the main walls we put all these carvings in sandstone, different carvings from different parts of India, different religions, different belief systems. And so when you walk inside the building, the entrance, you see these kind of artwork. And these are friends of ours. They liked our house so much, they said, can we come live with you? And we said yes, but then they said, but we have one condition. We want Zaha Hadid to design our houses. So I said, well, as long as they're, maybe you can make them out of bamboo or grass, you can do it. So these are the birds in their lovely houses. Now, this is what we call an in-between space, or in this case, a promenade. It creates an emotional space, which is not on the road outside, but it's also kind of public, and it's not in the inside, so it's not that sacred, but it starts telling people entering into India House that you're changing your environment, you have to change your behavior, emotionally you have to change. And just go back a minute, Ron, they can see these prayer wheels from Bhutan. So we put also prayer wheels from Bhutan where we have a studio to give it its own character. And so it has prayer wheels on one side and lotus ponds on the other, okay? And in those lotus ponds, and next to the lotus ponds, we put statues that we've collected from different parts of India. So we call it India House because it has art and artifacts from all over the country, and we have people working there from all over the country. This is the promenade where you come up to the courtyard, which face north. I could say maybe even I learned that trick from Doshi's School of Architecture, but in this one maybe I exploited the north-facing skylights a little more. And then I worked on a structural system which had beams 5 feet on center. And those beams you can see in the skylight, there's divisions, which are 5 feet on center. And then the 5 feet on center fit into a grid. All of these spaces are made up of 15-foot by 15-foot grids. So you start with 15 feet by 15 feet in the plan. You come down to 5-foot by 5-foot beams. If we look at the elevation, you'll see 7.5 by 7.5 foot pivoting doors. And then we have ventilators to let hot air out, which are 2.5 by 2.5. So it kind of, as students of architecture, if you have a module like that, 2.5 feet times 2 is 5, add 2.5 to 5 is 7.5, 15. It's an easy system to work with. It works with the structure, it works with the skylights, and it works with the facade. So here you can see that the only place there are windows is on the north, where the skylight drops down onto the north elevation, and 2 toilets are plugged in. I didn't want to stick the toilets in the plan, because if you architects know when you're drawing plans, you stick a toilet in, suddenly it becomes a little tiny box in a beautiful big space. So I didn't want to destroy the spaces. So actually this building looks complex, but it's very simple. This is an isometric. Faculty of Architecture, please make your students do, this is called an exploded isometric. In an exploded isometric, you can see the structure, you can see the spaces, and you can see how the whole building works together. Now this is the south facade, southwest facade. The doors are tucked back in where they get a little bit of shade. There are no windows, there are just the ventilators. Another point, there are not more than 5 materials in this building. There's concrete, brick, MS steel, some glass, and very little wood. I'm trying to even think maybe the 2 doors into the toilets have wood panels in them. But it's very simple. A little bit of codestone, trimming around the IPS floor. IPS floor means Indian pattern stone. That's a fancy word for concrete floor. So back in those days, this floor is made of concrete, and I used strips of codestone in the concrete to align the 15-foot by 15-foot modules and to make skirting on the wall. But what I'm trying to say here is you don't need to use a lot of fancy material, reflecting glass, panels of aluminum, all kinds of junk materials which we're getting from, sorry to my Chinese friends, from China, which the Americans made very popular. We can use very simple materials here and get great architecture. So in the space here, you see that the light creates the space. Yes, we make forms and we put walls, but it's the light dropping from the top that creates the space. Now that column in the middle, actually it's in the middle of it's 15 feet in all directions. Why did I put it there? It's actually not structurally needed. A friend of mine went to Jaisalmer and he did a sketch of a very old main hall in a large palace in Jaisalmer. And there was a column in the middle of that, and I asked him, why is that column there? And he said, see, when you move in the space, if the column is there, the walls behind look like they're moving. You move and the walls move because the column stays stationary. So I thought that was a great kinetic intervention into the space. By having this column in the middle of the space, it made the space move as you moved around the space. So that was an interesting kind of intervention. And then I used the same type of column to hold up mezzanine balconies that ran around the building. This is a building which is used as a multifunction cultural center, mainly exhibitions, lectures, some small lessons at that time in French were given there. And it was a very informal kind of space. You can see again it's brick, it's exposed concrete. These are the toilets. They have a small skylight over them. There's Indian WCs, as we call them, marissa pans, and a basin in the building. Very simple. At that time we had only one kind of glass. You could have it in transparent, which was wavy. You could have it blue, and I think you could have some sort of wire inside of it. So we didn't have many choices. Now this is where I live and Ram lives, and we run a studio, and we have an art gallery, and we have recreation facilities, a small lap pool, and a gymnasium on the ceiling. So it's in a city called Pune. Some of you would have been there. It's a big IT center, it's an automobile center, it's an educational center. I think we have 7 universities, quite large ones, and huge automobile factories, and some of the, I think TCS is the largest IT company in India. This is the location. Look at that, 2004. This is the site where we live today and where we practice architecture. Just a little more than 10 years ago. Now look at it today. Now see, this is what's happening to our country. It's happening in Aizawl also. That when we bought the land, it was virtually an open field, and we started designing the building. There's a 100-foot road running in front of the plot, and we had to think of the future. What would happen when this 100-foot road comes? Interestingly, the 100-foot road, after all these years, still hasn't been built. So we have a kind of a jungly road and a big 100-foot right space in front of our building. But it will come. So we had to design for that. So that's where India House is. Now let me tell you why I call it an urban prototype. I wanted to build a traditional Indian house. Professor Tiwari would know these kind of houses, courtyard houses. In old cities, walled cities, you had a lane. You had a lovely big door. You walked through the door into a courtyard. And many times people had their business on one side and their office on the other side, inside a courtyard house, like the Havelis of Ahmedabad, the Wadas of Pune, Mahals in North India, and even in South India we had courtyard houses. I wanted to do that, but the government wouldn't let me share walls with the future neighbors. I couldn't get them to change the rules, so I had to leave setbacks, but I did achieve having a courtyard and an entrance with a large gate off the road. Now, meanwhile, if you see the next picture, all my friends wanted houses like this. They wanted an American road with taking 20% of the land. They wanted a lawn, and they always wanted Mexican grass. I found it very funny that they wanted American roads, Mexican grass, English cottages, and they wanted the house to be right in the middle of the site with a lawn around it, generally not well maintained. The funny thing is in America, they do these houses and everybody shares the lawns. So when you're walking down the street, you see vast green open space, but in India we all put walls around our house. So in the end, the whole thing becomes India by putting a big wall which is 6, 8, 10 feet tall. So when you're walking in the street, you just see walls. Now getting back to what I wanted to do, this is a house in Tamil Nadu. It's a Chettinar house. It's a community, a business community. And you can see in the back is the door, and you come into a courtyard, and on the left is his house, on the right is his office. And then on the roof, he's covered the roof because it's so sunny to give a little bit of control of how much light comes in. And I really like this house, and I think it's very typical of houses all over the plains. People of India live in houses like this, not the hill people, but it's a very typical kind of house. So this influenced me, and I love these doors. This is something you would find even today. If you go to a scrapyard in a big city, you can buy 100, 200-year-old doors that look like this for a small amount, relatively small amount of money. Ram and I found a door like this. It was made in Haryana in the Mughal period, around maybe 1775. A house was being torn down, and we bought a door for India House. So these are elements: the courtyard, the portal, not having windows on the outside, but having focus on the inside, that we wanted to use as a prototype. So in the next images, you can see the sketch I did back in 2008. These buildings weren't around me, but I realized my house is going to be surrounded by a jungle. If it's like Dorpui Road, you know, you could maybe 20 years there, you romantically would design a house, and you know what it looks like today. So the same thing is happening on my road. This is what it's like now. We're getting new rules are allowing 22-story towers, and even it's going to go up to 30 stories. So I'm getting multi-story buildings coming up. It's even higher than I thought in 2005. So I made a wall in the front, the wall facing the road. There are no windows at all because it's going to be very noisy and polluted. And I had a setback of 20 feet, so I could use that setback to make a promenade. I'll show later. You did see those black squares. Those are very dark glass, so the neighbors can't see in, and we get a little bit of light in the studios. This again is an isometric. It shows a courtyard in the middle, a house on the right, and an office on the left. And in the basement, or under the podium, you have a very large art gallery of more than 5,000 square feet. It's the largest private art gallery in the city of Pune. And we call it India House. There's a wall protecting from the outside, because the outside is full of chaotic activities, a lot of construction workers, vendors, etc. So we made these nice wood doors coming between this space, and on the main walls we put all these carvings in sandstone, different carvings from different parts of India, different religions, different belief systems. And so when you walk inside the building, the entrance, you see these kind of artwork. And these are friends of ours. They liked our house so much, they said, can we come live with you? And we said yes, but then they said, but we have one condition. We want Zaha Hadid to design our houses. So I said, well, as long as they're, maybe you can make them out of bamboo or grass, you can do it. So these are the birds in their lovely houses. Now, this is what we call an in-between space, or in this case, a promenade. It creates an emotional space, which is not on the road outside, but it's also kind of public, and it's not in the inside, so it's not that sacred, but it starts telling people entering into India House that you're changing your environment, you have to change your behavior, emotionally you have to change. And just go back a minute, Ron, they can see these prayer wheels from Bhutan. So we put also prayer wheels from Bhutan where we have a studio to give it its own character. And so it has prayer wheels on one side and lotus ponds on the other, okay? And in those lotus ponds, and next to the lotus ponds, we put statues that we've collected from different parts of India. So we call it India House because it has art and artifacts from all over the country, and we have people working there from all over the country. This is the promenade where you come up to the courtyard. This is the gate. We bought this thing, as I said, from Haryana. It's a very, very old teak wood door with metalwork in it. It's a lovely door. You could never get it made today. And when you enter into the courtyard, you look straight down to this old statue of Shiva. So it aligns your eye. It's an element that forces you to look in a particular direction, and it makes you get ordered in the space. Now this space is very useful. We have dance parties here. Students like your students, they come in buses, sometimes unannounced. They call up and say, how do you find India House? And Ram says, why do you want to know? Well, there are 40 of us in a bus. We want to come visit you. And I say, oh no, I've got my work today. I can't have 40 visitors in the house. But anyway, finally, we say yes. This is a gentleman called Azem Premji. If you've heard of Wipro, he owns Wipro. And he's my client, and he donated $3 billion US, 17,000 crores, to build a university in Bangalore called the Azem Premji University, which is one of our projects. So this kind of a big space, it's very nice in selling architecture to your clients. They get impressed. They start understanding what is space, why architecture, what's going to happen. And then you come in from that courtyard into the lobby of our office, which is also the lobby of an art gallery on the lower level, which you can see in the next slide. You go down these stairs into a very large art gallery. And we have a two-story space which connects the entry with the art gallery. It tells people when they come in that there's something down there, why not go explore and see what it is. So this is an art gallery called India House Art Gallery that Ram Prasad runs. And on the right-hand, way back inside that colored painting is a painting he did for a building in Bombay designed by IMP. Have you heard of IMP? He did the Louvre Glass Pyramid and other famous buildings. So in Bombay, his firm has done 117-story Lota World 1. And Mr. Lota asked Ram to do the lobby painting. This is before it was shipped to Bombay. We had a big opening. So this is the art gallery. It's very simple. And we have all kinds of exhibitions from different countries and different parts of India. And we have our own small auditorium inside the gallery area, which can seat about 50 people, which is good for small lectures, our staff meetings, etc. Now I sit on the top floor, on the second floor in a large studio with about 40 architects, and we work together. I usually come in around 11 o'clock and stay till 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and then I work in my office, in my study and the other parts. So our studio looks almost like an IT company. Everybody works on computers, they work on software, and this is one of the new problems of starting an architectural office. Just to have a student come and sit down, you have to spend more than a lakh of rupees on the computer and the software. In our office, all the software has to be registered software. We used to steal software. But then guess what? Mr. Premji became my client. That cost me about a lakh rupees times 40 people, because all of his emails have software in them, and if you're using stolen software, it's rejected, it's sent back. And then also Mr. Premji gets angry with you for stealing software. So all of the software in our office, whether it's MS Word or whether it's AutoCAD or whether it's Photoshop, it's all legal. So I wanted to just mention this because, you know, 10, 20 years ago in India, nobody used registered software. It was quite okay. But then I think Neelkant Chaya and Ahmedabad's office was raided, and he being the dean of Sept University, it was all over the newspapers, and immediately we all ran for cover and bought legal software and let Chaya take the brunt of illegal software. Yeah, they also raid. Like the income tax department, one time they came to our office and they said, we want to see your computers, to see what software you have. And some of the boys had put, in addition to our legal software, their own stolen software. So we had to send a message upstairs, will you gentlemen sit down and have some tea and some cakes? And somebody said, take all that stuff immediately off the computer. Because there are softwares for, you know, adding American girls to the perspectives and things like that. I'm making a joke. But there are softwares for 3D that people use, which I don't even know what they are. But we were never really caught having illegal software, but it's pretty difficult. In fact, now we've done in our studio, I'll mention this, you cannot add, it used to be that anybody could stick a CD into their computer and add software. Now we've closed all that. You cannot put pen drives, you cannot put CDs. There's only 1 or 2 places where you can enter into our system into a common server. So it's become very difficult to run offices now, especially when you have more than 10 people. So this is an image of a little party. Sometimes without telling me, the kids say that we'll wear traditional dress. So it's a traditional dress day, and let me see if I can get this interesting thing. Okay. So that's not really what we look like, but that's a traditional dress there. This is the house across the courtyard. Now, another thing I'll tell you about the house. Go back one second. I think it's important. See that painting, that Tonka was painted for us by a painter in Thimphu, Bhutan, up in the hills above Thimphu. It's a Tonka, and it took him more than a year to paint it. So it's an original painting. That statue, Natraj, it's made from a technique called lost wax in a town called Swami Malang. This is a technique where you can only make one piece. What happens today, industries around Delhi, they'll make a mold and pour it in copper or something, and you can make 200 pieces out of one mold. When you use lost wax, it's an original piece of art, and it's a dying art, which is there in Tamil Nadu. But see, as architects, we should include artwork. Even the rug on the floor, Ram and I bought that when we were in Istanbul, and it's a beautiful Turkish rug. It's a piece of art. So I think try to, over your life, slowly collect artwork and put it in your buildings. And now I tell my clients, you should also support the arts. You should support painters and sculptors and traditional artists also. So from there I'll go to the next slide. But you could also see spaces, double story. This is a bedroom. This is where I write. It's my study in the house. And it's a bit of my collection of books. And sometimes my friends come to talk to me, but we don't talk to each other. We talk on our cell phones to somebody else. That's Balkrishna Doshi. So Ram could not avoid finding the humor in this picture of Doshi and I talking to somebody else. Now, having said that, we'll look at, this is at nighttime. This is during Diwali, and we have these rangolis and lights, and so it's a space, used to celebrate Diwali, and we also have parties and what else not there. Now, urban restructuring, this is in one of India's oldest colleges, called the College of Engineering at Pune. I think it was started in 1852, so it makes it one of the oldest institutions in the country, and it's certainly one of the oldest three engineering colleges in Asia. And this is the location where the two rivers meet in the city, and this is 2002. And now there's a lot of bridges and flyovers and things. It's become a bustling area. In fact, the metro is going to swing around the corner. This is the urban design idea that we would give more space to house more students. Right now, we only have ground plus 2 19th century and early 20th century hostels. No places for girls, and as you know, girls are dominating everything these days. So we're getting more and more girls. So the urban design concept was these 4 towers, ground plus 11. On kind of stilts, by stilts I mean their dining halls and common facilities, connected by a street. So this was just a quick idea, and we had to infill this, put it in a sort of a restructured space between the old buildings. Why? The hostel there on the right, number 12, is where Vishvesvaraya, I'm not pronouncing it correctly, but he was one of the most famous engineers of India under the Maharaja of Mysore, and he introduced all kinds of innovative engineering. He studied there, so we can't tear it down. And number 2, if we tear it down, the new building control rules say you can't replace anything there because there's setbacks from the road. Now we have to keep huge setbacks from the road, so if we were to tear it down, we can't use the space. So the client said, leave it there. That was nice. We created a nice courtyard. Now this is a model of the building. Just notice 1 or 2 things. The vertical towers, what are they? They're elevator shafts. They're fire stairs. So this is a tall building. The problem with tall buildings in Pune, people are just stacking one floor on top of the other. Even in Aizawl, if you look at the building, there's no difference in the elevation of a 1-story, 2-story, 10-story building. People just keep stacking one more floor on top of the other. I wanted to give an expression of the verticality of this building. So you can see the elevators, fire stairs, and then the fabric of the building in between. This is an isometric. Students, your faculty is going to require you to do these at every project. Okay? And this is what the building looks like. It's all exposed concrete, poured concrete. It's a technology which I'm trying to reintroduce into Pune. It disappeared for some time, for the last 20 years, because people found it too difficult. But this building came way under the estimates, which was shocking to me. Now, you can see the towers, and I'll show you in a minute, between see these windows? There are windows in the hostel rooms. These are girls' hostel rooms. And then there are jalis, which are in dry balconies. I noticed that all the hostels in India, when you look at them, you see underwear hanging out the window. Everybody washes their clothes and hangs it out the window, and it's unsightly. So I said, look, no saris. The saris, in Western India, ladies wear saris, and when they wash them and dry them, they hang down 3 floors. And it's very colorful, but it's not architecture. So I said, okay, let's give them a dry balcony. And off of every dry balcony, you have one WC, one toilet, and in the dry balcony, 2 bases. And 2 rooms share that. So 4 girls, that is 2 in each room, share a dry balcony. This is the entrance. Again, it's exposed concrete. Nice stairs. I think Joe and his friends like those kind of stairs. And this is the space between the old hostel and the new. I joke with the women and call it a Rani Bagh. Now, I don't know if you know what a Rani Bagh is. In the princely states in India, they wouldn't let the women out in the public, so they had gardens for women where the Ranis, the princesses and queens, were only allowed to go outside in Rani Baghs. So this is we've given the old hostel on the right to the women for postgraduate students, and the big building is for undergraduate. And I said, okay, now at nighttime, since you girls have to be in by 8 o'clock, maybe for Mizoram that's too early, but the girls have to be in by 8 o'clock, and so I said, that's your Rani Bagh at night. You can be outside in the garden. So that's kind of fun. And this is the entrance, wood door. Look at the ceilings, there are murals in the ceilings. This is the dining hall. It's a very functional, practical space, easy to clean, not very complicated, but has windows on both sides looking into gardens. So you have big walls. And then upstairs in the passageways, you have exposed concrete murals. Before pouring the concrete, we put these designs in the formwork, and when you remove the formwork, you get these kind of artwork. Same thing in the ceiling. Now this is Suzlon One Earth. It's an enclave. What do I mean by an enclave? It's a very large project, but it does not integrate with the city because the city is chaotic, as we've tried to show you. This is the site in 2003. This is the site today. So again, the same problem. We're getting surrounded by cacophony, chaos, and jazz, and we wanted to have our own space. So I was doing this, I said, well, what are the features that I want to learn from India? So I looked at Fatehpur Sikri. It's a kind of an open public space in the middle. Just like it's India House, we had an open public space. Alliance Française, we had an open public space. And here's an open courtyard with water. Water's the main element for cooling. And then most of the spaces on the ground level open into that space. They're more open, and up on top they get more closed. Also from Kerala, I love these deep stumps. These are brass towers that you put lights on. In festivals, actually almost every day they light them up. And then they use jalis to keep direct sunlight out of the rooms, but air can go through, and indirect lighting goes in. So the sloped roofs and the deep stumps and these jalis were elements that I thought, in a public space, they created a beautiful public space for people. So I thought, can I bring these into the middle of this very large 1 million square foot corporate headquarters? This is a deep stump I sketched. This is sketches the first week after the project was given to me. And I told the client that whatever we do, I want these. I want water, I want a deep stump, I want these coon-like steps going down to water, and I want these to be part of the project. Now they also liked these ideas, so they never argued much about it. But they survived through the project. So that's a quick sketch of the deep stump in the middle, and some entrances there. In the group, they have several companies, each one has its own entry. So I wanted everybody's entry to focus on the deep stump, and I wanted water to be there. There's a story behind this sketch, but I won't bother telling you. My client, a billionaire, said, he calls up and says, his secretary says, get over here in half an hour. Tulsi Tandi is leaving for Europe in an hour, and he wants you to present the site plan. I didn't have a site plan. So I told Ram, I think it's the end of the project. And I tried to give an excuse, and they said, no, nothing doing. So that sketch I did in 15 minutes, and drove over to his office, and he said, what's that? I said, it's Zen Buddhism. This is simplicity. No? This is peace of mind. And he said, that's great, do it. And when I told him there was a deep stump, he's a devout Hindu, he was very pleased with that, so we went ahead. This is the site plan. Now the thing to notice here is all the vehicles go on the edge of the site in the setback, and they go underneath the project down ramps. So we have a big parking space under the whole site where we park vehicles, 500 vehicles. And you can't drive cars inside of the central space, where you can see number 5 is a deep stone. So the campus looks like this. It has lotus pools, it has gardens, it has spaces that are outdoors and indoors. Inside it has courtyards, and this is covered with photovoltaic cells that generate electricity. This building, it's a complex actually, generates almost 10% of its energy on campus through photovoltaic cells and windmills. And this you can see is a kind of a courtyard with water. If you go to Nepal, you'll see these kind of courtyards all over the place. It's a very Indian kind of an idea to have a place where there's water and you can sit next to the water, a kind of kund with steps. So people like to take breaks and come sit here and talk to each other. And then we have these louvers on the wall. I'll show you later how they work. A lot of water in the courtyard, and at nighttime you can see through the louvers. So the louvers don't stop your view, they just stop the sun from coming in. This is a night view. We always show this to clients to tell them when they say we don't want louvers, it will block the view. We'll say, well, look what happens, you can see through them. And this is the basic system of the building. It's louvers with glass behind. So it lets light in, but not direct light. So it blocks the heat, gives you free lighting, so you don't have to spend electricity. It's called passive energy conservation. And it's a system that worked very well. This building, of course, was a platinum, I think it was the first platinum LEED building in India of such a large scale. And it also was one of the first Terry Griha 5-star projects. This is the deep stone, made of granite, and it has LED lights. And there's a water body below. You remember the sketch, so the sketch survived to the end. And then this is the dining hall. 800 people can take their lunch here at the same time. One quick story on the right. Now these glass areas, people said, well, you know, you're trying to stop heat from coming in. Why did you use glass? And I said, I use heat because these are actually chimneys. When the sun hits these glass cylinders, you can see plants on the right side growing. They're growing from the basement. And if you see the roof, there's a hole in the top. So when the sun hits this glass cylinder, the air heats up like your car when you leave it locked outside in the sun. Your car gets very hot. So the hot air starts rising, and it sucks all of the air out of the basement, and it's free ventilation. Otherwise, we have to spend a lot of money on fans in the basement and ducts getting the air out. So these glass cylinders, which I could put in the lobbies of all the different group companies, became air conditioners, really air ventilators. And they're nice to look at. And I wanted to make them anyway, even if the client didn't want to. And I kept arguing, I want my glass cylinders. And then I thought of this trick, you know, hey, this can be a chimney, and it becomes sustainable architecture. So while we want to do sustainable architecture, we can also use it to innovate new, beautiful things to look at. Okay, urban periphery. This is an institute of management for a family called the Kirloskar family, very close friends of ours. And they have many companies. You would know Toyota. In India, it's the Kirloskar Toyota company. They make pumps, they make generators, automobiles, whatnot. So this is their management institute. I'll go through it quickly. These are the sketches I did the first week or so. I wanted sloped roofs out of metal, copper metal, spaces in between. I'm waiting now for them. And this was sort of a typical sketch, but this was not a sketch of any particular building. It was a sketch of the feel I wanted. I wanted regular window openings. And then this is the dining hall complex, isometric, which is at the top. At the top is actually the lower part of the page on the slide. The site slopes down. And on the left-hand side of the hostels, the right-hand side of the lecture halls and academic area. And in the middle is this public space, something like Suzlon, something like India House. There's a big public pedestrian space where automobiles cannot enter. And on the front side of the model, you see hostels, the dining hall, and the big space goes on down, and then the teaching areas. This is phase 1. It's about half the project. And it looks something like this in the mountains around Pune. They're not mountains like you have here, but they're hills. We can argue that the hills, and then you get down to the Deccan. The hills look down to the Deccan Plateau. So the entrance has this copper roof and a pavilion to be dropped off, and you enter from here. Again, it's exposed concrete. I put those holes so that you can look down, your friend can stand at one end, and you can stand at the other and smile at each other. But what people do, because of selfies, they take pictures of each other looking through this. If you look at my website, there's a picture of me looking through this hole. And on the right is what it looks like. This is in the administrative area, a lot of glass looking out. Again, simple exposed concrete with a mural in the ceiling, protostone floors. And this is one of the quadrangles around the administrative area. And next. This is the main dining hall. Again, it has a copper roof. It's actually calcium composite roof. It has a copper skin on the outside, then aluminum, and then insulation to stop heat gain. And we also put skylights in it. It makes a beautiful big space. All the windows look out into the view across the plateau. So this is what it looks like inside. Now, this is something like Alliance Française, the structure and the skylights gift space. And so the whole system, it's a system of structure, light, space, it works together, and you can get a nice wood roof out of this. And it's a very pleasant place, even though it's a very large space. They even have their convocations sometimes in the space. And this is the kind of feel you get. It's a kind of language of roofs which are sloped. And in the dining halls, we have these tall roofs that you can look up. In the academic area, way in the back, we put the air conditioning equipment, because I don't like air conditioning equipment stuck all over the roofs and Syntex tanks all over there. So we could use these roofs to sort of hide the mechanical equipment. And then underneath them are classrooms. And in the landscape, we designed all these kind of walls where we have ramps for people to move if they have to move on wheelchairs. We had fun doing all this kind of artwork. So when you're doing project, do artwork in your project also. Try to make it a place which is like almost a gallery. So this is the Kalosky Institute. This is the executive training hostel with a small atrium space. And that's the Kalosky Institute. Now, Forbes Marshall, again, are a very large family in Pune, Parsi people who make boilers, they make all kinds of things, water purifiers, whatnot. So we did this design for an industrial park, about 50 acres or more. And then the first building was that big square on the left. It's called a boiler factory. Now, I didn't want to do this project. They came and asked me to do it, and I sent them to 5 other architects who do factories, and then they came back. And then I said, if you let me design every column, every truss, every beam, you don't buy anything off the shelf, I'll do it. So they allowed me to do this. So that we designed all the buildings, but the building over, I'm going to show you first, is the boiler factory. It's 110 meters by 110 meters. I think that's as big almost as a football field. So it's a huge, I call it cathedral of work. It's a place where we honor work and we celebrate work. And you can see these huge factories they're going to put, right now, my eyesight isn't that great. Is it number what, Ron? The boiler? Number 18 is the first one I'm going to show you. So this is the model we made. And why we made this model was to study the structure. You get these big trusses, which are 18 meters, the small ones, and 27 meters of the large one, spanning across, between gutters, which has to take water from the roof. And also under those gutters, you have railway tracks. They're called gantries, where these big gantries slide back and forth and carry tons and tons of metal and boilers. So you have a system of the trusses, skylights over each truss, drainage lines, which are over the longitudinal beams. So it's a whole system, but once you crack the system, you've got the whole design. And we designed everything. We did not call a structural engineer until after we finished our design, and we said, we want you to vet our design. We want you to tell us, can you make it a little cheaper, slimmer? Can you make it stronger where necessary? Can you stop us from making fools of ourselves? It shouldn't collapse. So you check the whole thing and make suggestions for minor changes. So that's how we did this project. We've done several projects like this. Next. This is the model again. Now on the right-hand side you see entrances. Big semi-trucks can drive in here. Very large trucks. Over the porches we have our ventilating equipment. Big fans which push air into the building. and it comes out. We have to change air at least 6 times an hour, complete change of air for safety and health reasons. This is a model. You can see the columns. They're very large steel columns, and the trusses over the columns, and again, cowl-zip roofs above the trusses. So you can see the cowl-zip roof, curved, bring watering down into those gutters, and then there are trusses under the gutters, there are trusses running across the gantries with skylights over them. So it's a system. So I think it's important, even if you look at India House is built on a system of jack arches. Allianz Français is a system of beams 5 feet on sand. So when you're designing a building, very soon in the process, come up with your structural system. Don't let a structural designer come in afterwards and tell you how to ruin your building. So students of architecture, try to have a sketch of your structural system, your spatial system, and light. How do all those things work? And you'll easily come to good solutions to your buildings. Next. This is when we finished all the steelwork. And to me, that was the most beautiful moment in this whole project. This is 110 meters, what is that, 340 or 50 feet wide. And to me, as an architect, I felt like I had designed the Parthenon in Greece, looking at these columns and these big trusses that running across. These are very large trusses running across. It's very exciting at this stage because we had only the structural systems to buy itself. Now look at the scale. See how people are, how small they look compared to the structure. And as an architect, it's a great feeling when you build something of this scale. Now, the final building on the left side, you see these aluminum jollies. This is to stop too much light coming in. Behind the jollies, there's a glass wall, because we wanted free light. We didn't want to spend electricity lighting up this factory. So we had this very large aluminum panels. It was not very expensive, because in Pune we get a lot of aluminum. This is a north elevation of another factory across the street from the boiler part. You see the curvy wall? Those are offices. Every factory has a huge number of offices. The income tax department has an excise office to collect their taxes when finished goods leave the factory. Then the managers have offices. There are dining halls, there's a medical center, there are toilets. All kinds of things take place in a factory. And this factory, incidentally, as Ram said, it was voted one of the 10 best places to work in India. 650 people work in our boiler factory. And the other 9 best places to work in India were new banks, new corporate headquarters, IT centers. So this was the only factory where factory workers got the pleasure of having one of the best places to work in the country. And when they come to the finalists, the last 100 billion, they go and interview people working there without telling them why they're coming there. They come and ask them, do you like working here? Is it too hot, too cold? Is it dirty? Is the air polluted? Do you like, is it comfortable? So the people working participate in that. This is the utility building. It has all the gen sets and electric panel rooms and things like that. And the engineers who run the factories, I don't mean run the factories in terms of creating boilers, but who look after the maintenance of the buildings, they all sit here. Now, this is just gives you an idea. On the left is the workshop, the right is the boiler. Now, the only interesting thing here is the yellow beams, they slide back and forth. And they weigh themselves a couple of tons, and they carry up to 10 tons of loads. And they slide through the whole factory. More than 100 meters, they slide back and forth, and they can lift these boilers and put them on lorry trucks to take them off to the place they sold them. Now, the last I'm showing you is something I call a sacred urban precinct. Bhutan, which is not really so far from here, is when I went there in 1979, it was a totally medieval monarchical society, no democracy, very strong kingdom, and I've been going there for years, and in 2001 they asked me to do a master plan of the capital city, and then in 2003 they asked me to do many buildings in the capital complex. So the first one I'm showing you, this is a picture of the location of Bhutan, and this is the valley, Thimphu Valley, and that red circle is up where the ancient fortress monastery is. I'll only use the local word, it's called the Chachi Chozan. The Chachi Chozan is a huge fortress monastery, about 750 feet by 220 feet. in which His Majesty sits, and now the elected Prime Minister says, and the chief monk and 400 monks live in that building. So it's a very ancient, the first temple there was built in the 12th century. This is the location in the city, in the northern part of the city, and this is the whole complex, the capital complex, showing the Fortress Monastery at the bottom right along the river. On the left is the Royal Secretariat complex that we designed. And just north of the Fortress Monastery, there's a square area where we designed the National Ceremonial Plaza. And way up in the top, you'll see the Supreme Court of Bhutan, which we also designed. This is a sketch I did of the Fortress Monastery, just a kind of fun sketch, just to get a feel of it. And some of the other buildings, a wood bridge crossing the river, and some other large buildings around. This is the Fortress Monastery. So see the challenge to me now. I have to add something to this heritage building. And see, they said we're not fossilizing our heritage buildings. We are not putting our heritage buildings in museums for tourists to look at. We use these buildings. See the central, inside that Fortress Monastery, there's one white building sticking up higher. That's a 12th century Buddhist temple called a Lakang, and that particular Lakang is called the Utsi. And the Utsi is the most sacred place in the entire country of Bhutan. Every single Bhutanese knows what the Utsi is, and you can even see it in the middle of this aerial photograph of the valley. Now, above, sort of to the top of that circle, you see a white sort of a space. That's the National Ceremonial Plaza, which we designed. The reason for that plaza is they brought democracy in about 10 years ago. And inside of this is a cardboard model we made of our new secretariat on the right and the old thing. So when we were going to do the National Ceremonial Plaza, it had to allow 20,000 people to gather at one time, and we used the mandala. Mandala is a very sacred symbol of Buddhists, and it indicates the cosmos and indicates a kind of perfect world. So this sketch, on the right is the Fortress Monastery, on the left is the big, it's actually a dance area, and this is a tea stall, a sketch that I did. This is where I want to add balconies to the old building so that His Majesty can come out on the balcony with his family, so that the Jai Khenpo, who's the Dalai Lama of Bhutan, can come out with his senior monks. And on the ground level, there's a sort of veranda for ambassadors and VIPs to sit. And then the whole populace of the city of Thimphu, or the country, can come and sit around the edges. These are actual photographs with Photoshop we put over our drawings. It's a nice idea when you're designing a building to use Photoshop, take pictures of the actual site, and put your design inside of it so you can see how it fits. And this is the final built project. In Bhutan, they have these huge Buddhist festivals where people dance, and they have these big Himalayan horns that they make music, and drums they beat, and they have professional dancers, and then the people themselves come down and they also dance. It's part of their festival. These are some of the craftsmen who worked on this. And I wanted to talk a little bit about something I call the culture of construction. Instead of using steel and glass and concrete, I used blue pine. You saw the guys working on blue pine. It splits easily, cracks. So they wrap local linen, which is woven in Bhutan, around these, using the sap of the tree to dry, and then they paint with these local mineral paints, and it becomes very beautiful. So this is our design, added onto the Fortress Monastery, and this is a function with His Majesty greeting the people. As you can see, it gets really crowded, and they decorate my building, and I cringe sometimes and say, oh my God, look what they've done to my building. But fortunately, these are just woven cloths which they take off, so I find it kind of nice and festive that they decorate the buildings. And here it's even raining, and still they're dancing and they're standing around enjoying themselves. So that's the National Ceremonial Plaza. It's a major sacred space in the country. It's the only space in the whole Himalayan region where thousands of people can meet. It's a very living space. Now up north of that, we designed something called the Supreme Court of Bhutan. Because it became a democracy, if you study democracy, you need a Supreme Court to decide whether acts passed by Parliament or by state assemblies are legal or not. Do they break the Constitution? They might take an assembly might pass a law taking rights away from a minority community, and the Supreme Court justice would say you can't do that. It's against the Constitution, it's against the law. Or somebody might be sentenced to death wrongly, and the Supreme Court can say that's unconstitutional, you can't kill a person. For that you can put him in jail for life, or you can put him in jail for 10 years, but you can't kill him because the Constitution says you can't do that. So it's very important to have a Supreme Court in a democracy. So that's the site, 2003. This is 2016. Quickly I'll show you the layout. Again, a central space in the middle for the public. Anybody in Bhutan can go there and celebrate democracy and celebrate having a constitution and having rights under the Supreme Court. At the top is the full bench court. That is when the Chief Justice and 4 justices sit on a very important case together. And the 4 courts on the left-hand side are single bench courts. Single bench courts may take up criminal cases or civil cases from lower courts, and probably a full bench court would meet when the Parliament has passed a law and somebody's challenged it to be unconstitutional. This is a model. Again, the large square at the top is the full bench, 4 courts, and then there's a library. There's a judicial library at the bottom. On the right is the registrar's office, where all the papers that are kept and where the lawyers can. Again, this is a Photoshop of the actual site, and the buildings put into the site. Now, these are modern buildings. Yes, they use the language of Bhutan, but it's the first time anywhere in any Himalayan country where there's a Supreme Court. It's a new function, but we use traditional building methodologies. We try to protect the craftsmen, the local materials, and the local culture. Again, an isometric. This is what it looks like sitting in the mountains. It actually sits on the edge of a slope, coming down from one side. And then if you see the courtyard, it focuses towards the Utsi, that temple. This courtyard focuses straight on to the fortress monastery, and it aligns with that old 12th century temple. So, next one. It's a heavy one. See, that's another monastery. It's on the hill. So our architecture doesn't clash with the monastery above. This is what I call culture of construction. Culture of construction in Pune means steel, glass, aluminum, concrete. In Bhutan it means stone, it means wood, and it means craftsmen who know how to use wood, painters who know how to paint on wood, using the local materials, appropriate technology, and craftsmen. Now there's a man whose picture you would recognize. This was a gift of the government of India to Bhutan, the Supreme Court, so the Prime Minister came to inaugurate this project. This is the full bench court, and this is looking down the courtyard towards the Utsi, and you can see that the whole project focuses on the sacred building, linking it into the whole complex. And this is an example of the beautiful woodwork. Now, if I had decided to use fiberglass copies, or ACP cladding, or any other kind of funny material, it would have destroyed the whole building. But this is the kind of culture of construction we can use in Bhutan, just like in the Forbes factory, we used another culture of construction to work within that culture. So on that note, I'll thank you very much. If anybody wants to ask questions, as long as it's not very personal, I don't mind answering questions. But don't ask me why I came to India. Anybody want to ask a question? I'm very happy that nobody's asking a question because I've been talking too long. So thank you very much. Yeah?
Thank you, Professor Benninger. It was very interesting, very inspiring. I hope we have a good time here. We'll have interaction time for the next program. Let the usher please arrange the seats. Any ushers available here? We'll be having an interaction, question and answer time. Anybody can raise questions. You can raise your hand, and you'll be attended by the ushers. They'll be holding the FM, and our professor will be answering those questions. I think I believe that we We will be having lots of questions that we would like to know. Maybe with the management or structural consultancy or whatever is required. So we'll have interaction. Whoever has any questions, you can raise your hand. The professor will answer those. After this program, we'll be having this book signing, like we have displayed over here. There are two books, Christopher Bellinger, and the other one is Letters to Young Architects, I believe. Those are the two books. The big one is 4,000, and the small book is 500. Anybody can buy it. Anyone who's not available with the cash, they have card reader. You can swipe it with a credit card or debit card, anything. So anyway, let us have the interaction time. Feel free. Let us not be in any tension or anything like that. So if anybody has questions, you can raise your hand. Okay, let's open.
There's a hand up. The lights are so bright we can't see your hand.
You can raise down these lights a little bit, and you can put up these lights.
Yes, sir. I'll just ask one question first, and if there are no more questions, maybe some more later on. Now we are practicing architecture for about 10 years, some of us, and some have just started, and some have been going on for about 20 years. My question is, what would you have done? I mean, I'm not asking what you have done. What you have done if you had still been in your late 30s or early 40s? The kind of things that you could have done. I mean, you might have done, looking back, the work you have done, looking back at your professional life, what kind of different path you might have chosen? It will be like some kind of an advice for us as well.
No, I think it's a very good question. And I should say one thing. See, the very first work I did was actually low-cost housing. When I was a student in Ahmedabad in 1969, I did free work for what is called an NGO, or a voluntary agency. And I know in Mizoram you have a lot of voluntary agencies now. So I did free work for a social worker whose wife ran a school in a slum. And 4 years later, when I came back to start the School of Planning in Ahmedabad, the husband became the Minister of Housing. Good luck for me. So, and I was the only architect he knew who offered to help he and his wife build houses for the slum dwellers. Now, in fact, none of those houses could ever be built because the land was squatted on it, belonged to the municipal corporation. So when he became the minister, he said, can you design about 800 to 1,000 houses in Jamnagar, which I did, and that was the first economically weaker section housing project in India in 1972. And so what I would do, you're asking the question, I would do more low-cost housing, because that first project led to something called the Madras Sites and Services Project, where I could work through the World Bank, who saw my project in Jamnagar, on a very large scheme for the Metropolitan Planning Authority in Chennai, and we could give about 15,000 plots with water supply, electricity, and paved paths. Small plots, 200, 300, 400 square feet. People bought them on EMIs with HUDCO loans over 30 years, and we allowed people who had no housing, who wanted to build their own houses with their own hands, but they needed a piece of land that they owned. So those were exciting years when first I did some free work. So don't be shy if it's a good cause. It could be some sort of disaster relief work. It could be a dam is being built and people are being shifted and they need housing. But you could do voluntary work and maybe build up a reputation in low-cost housing, disaster relief, and then people start hiring you to do socially relevant work. So if I was to redo my career, I think that's what you're asking me. You wind up the film, go back 35 years, and you're 40 years old. I think it would be lovely to become a leader in housing for the masses. Because I'll just give you a simple example. In Bombay, in the island city of Bombay, the Bombay you and I know, only 3% of the people living within the metropolitan area, 20 million people, only 3% can afford the equated monthly installments on a loan to buy an apartment in the Bombay that we know, the island city. And if you go from the island city out to Panvel and up to Thane, another 6% only can afford. You've got 9%. And you go way out to the distant suburbs, to the feet, to Karjat, and where you start going up the railway tracks to Pune. You go to the edge of the metropolitan area, another 17% can afford there. So you've got 26% of the population only who can afford any kind of housing anywhere in the metropolitan area. To me, that spells disaster. It means about 75% of the people in Bombay will never have a house of their own. They'll never be participants in owners of the city. They'll become problem people. People who don't own the city start rebelling against the city. So I think for architects, this is a huge challenge, and I think there are solutions. And I think it's our profession which will find the solutions. I mean, I have some ideas myself, but I think there are big solutions, and it's just a question of time. The politicians will have to come to you, because they cannot face the onslaught of masses and masses of voters who can never afford a house. So I would go into low-cost housing, I would go into neighborhood planning, and I would go into more urban planning. If I look at Aizawl, the crying need of Aizawl is urban planning. Maybe Aizawl should be de-densified. I think it's unhealthy, unhygienic. Today I saw queues of taxis. Getting out of Aizawl wasn't easy to come here. What interested me, people on motorcycles, they were in lines, and they were so disciplined, they kept in a queue. They kept in a line. In Pune, all those motorcycles would have tried to pass each other, and from both sides they would have created gridlock. Both sides would have been facing each other, and they would have blocked the whole road. I was amazed in Aizawl that people are so disciplined that they kept a line of even 100 and 150 motorcycles, and next to them was another 100 taxis. I wanted to photograph that and show people in Pune. This is what's called civilization, where people respect each other enough that they know by jumping the queue they're creating a massive social problem. But I think city planning in Mizoram, new cities need to be planned. We need to create other options besides central Aizawl, and those should be planned communities. I don't see much evidence of any planning in Mizoram. So planning, low-cost housing, probably redeveloping areas of the city, maybe de-densifying them, creating pedestrian spaces. See, the pedestrian is the final victim of all these motorcycles and cars. When I came here in 1994, what is that, 22 years ago, you could walk around the city. I walked up and down the whole city. Now I wouldn't dare try to walk any long distance in Aizawl. It's scary. Okay. Maybe when you have some young interns, because now you're going to be producing office practice students. You're going to be, a lot of young people are coming. Maybe they can work for a very small salary on holidays, and they can do social projects. And then you can start developing I don't like to use the word, but a market for social work. Because architects have to be paid, we just can't do free work all the time. Any other questions? Don't worry, I won't give such long answers. Here's one here.
Hi, I'm Dennis. I'm from the hotel you're staying. Yeah. So the question I wanted to ask is related to Aizawl itself. On the same lines, as you can see, it's quite congested. It's growing out of proportion. It's not. It doesn't have any plan of its own. and our municipal corporation that's governing the regulations regarding the building codes and all that, it's quite new. So it's still in the formative years. But then, is it a fact that these problems exist in other big cities as well? In a sense, for example, Shimla, then you have places like Sikkim, now you have Shillong. Is it always that they're expanding outside, or they solve these problems locally through innovative architecture and engineering? And do you have a solution in those lines as well? Because densifying itself is going to be quite difficult when traditionally we are attached to our homes, our families, our colonies itself, because of those restrictions.
See, what happens is, if you visit Darjeeling, Nainital, any of the hill stations in India similar, they all have similar characteristics to Aizam. You have, again, I went to Simla in 1968 the first time. The mall at Simla was beautiful. It was pedestrian, low density, very pleasant to walk there. You could see out from the road to mountain views. Now it's so congested you cannot see anything. And it's full of junk and smells and dirt. The same thing, we were in Dehradun and went up into the mountains and the hill towns, even if it's Gantok, Darjeeling, somehow in India they look exactly like Aizawl, even worse. I think Aizawl isn't as bad as Darjeeling, for example. Now if you go to Thimphu, where we caught the development before it really snowballed. The first time I went to Thimphu in 1979, it had 8,000 population. And then when I went back, when I started doing the plan of the city, it had 37,000 people, and it was getting to be a problem. Areas were densifying, and now it has about 125,000 people. Just in the last 15 years, it's exploded. But because we had a plan, and we said you have to keep some setbacks between buildings, we started charging people for parking in the downtown area. We developed suburbs. We took villages outside of town, 15 large village areas, and we did local area planning with the people from those villages. But we told, we are going to plan your land. We are going to take your terraces and turn them into plots. And we developed 15 urban villages with a small shopping area, etc. Now, if I look at Thimphu today, I went back last year and I was shocked at how much development has taken place. But all the development has taken place within plots, with a certain amount of order, parking spaces there, setbacks are there, so you get some light coming into the building. So I feel that what's happening in Aizawl is simply a failure of planning. Because again, if you go back 20 years, 30 years, you did have space between buildings, you did have some light coming into buildings. And if you don't stop it, it will just keep on going, it will keep getting worse. And it's actually reached the place today where I realize probably the traffic congestion has almost reached a point where you can't move in the city. At 10 o'clock in the morning, it was very difficult to get out of the hotel and come here. And to me, it's a question of, I don't know how many new motorcycles a day would be put on the roads, how many new four-wheelers, but there would be quite a number of new vehicles every day, every month, every year, being dropped into Aizawl. Everybody wants to have a motorcycle, everybody wants to have a car. I think just give it 1 or 2 more years and you won't be able to drive your car. Now maybe a solution is to say, take Dorpui, your main shopping street. Maybe declare it, it's pedestrianized. It's only open for trucks and deliveries, maybe in the morning for 1 or 2 hours and maybe in the evening. Maybe only from 9 to 11 at night. But you start pedestrianizing streets and develop, I think one of you, maybe it was you, Joe, developed a parking garage. So maybe you develop a pedestrian network inside the city, and at the end of the fingers of that network you put parking garages there, where people can park and walk into the city. Or maybe take electric small vehicles, like auto rickshaws, electric driven through that network. There are so many exciting things you could think out as kind of solutions. But if you don't give the solutions, then you can't argue that the authorities aren't listening. It would be a good sketch pattern for every year the students do some part of the city, and they just do ideas. What are the ideas? How can we pedestrianize? How can we reduce the number of cars? If we reduce them, where do they go? We need some parking arrangements. We need alternative transport methods which are more mass transfer. Maybe electric buses, I don't know. But I think it's a big challenge, and you people are the only profession. See, I always argue, it's only architects who think of the future. Doctors are treating diseases you contracted in the past. Lawyers are fighting cases of arguments you had in the past, right? It's only architects who are, people are happily looking towards the future and having a dream of the future. So let's dream more than they dream. Listen.
Sir, regarding the discussion, we had that master plan in document. We had approval of the government, but it is not taken up. That is one very sad thing. We are having a lot of problems. We have to pass through a lot of bureaucracy, politicians, and all these things. So our plan is not working, and everybody is talking about master plan, city plan, and all these things. But it's not really working. That is the main problem. So in the light of that discussion, we are having such a great difficulty of getting through projects and plans. I think you must be having some difficulties getting through your projects. So may I request you to share any outstanding problem while taking through your projects? I mean, some of that. I think your projects are not mainly government projects, they are private projects, no? So we are, as an architect, government architect, we are having a lot of problem in the government getting through our projects. Our designs are not built properly, and our plans are not passing through properly. So we have that problem. You can advise that also, and may I request your experience regarding getting through your projects.
Okay.
Thank you.
See, the largest public project I did was the master plan of Timbuktu town. But I had a good luck there, and that was before democracy. So I had His Majesty. I had to convince one person, look, do you want to save this city or not? Do you want to mess up this city or not? So fortunately I did the plan at a time where I didn't have elected politicians who all have hidden agendas, who all want to make, I'm sorry to say, under the table money, who all want their friend to be the contractor, and we didn't have L1. Lowest bidder didn't take the project. We shortlisted contractors who had proven ability, and then we had L1, but we didn't let too many people come into that. But then if you come down to Pune, let me tell you, I do have public sector projects. I'm doing the Indian Institute of Technology in Hyderabad, which is about a 1,000 crore project, and it's a public sector project, and it moves very slowly. Big contractor, L&T, Larsen & Toubro, is the contractor. They're more powerful than either the director of IIT or myself. They can go to ministers and try to change our specifications. They do try these things. All I can say is that I like fighting. I love to have a good scrap, and I'm not a shy person. I don't try to keep friends when it comes to quality of construction. Most architects will not tell there's cheating going on. I write letters to the director with copies to the board of trustees that I think people are taking bribes in this project. I don't hesitate to do that. Maybe I'm older and I can get away with it, but I believe in speaking truth, and I think that helps. In Pune we have what they call a master plan. It's a development plan. It's actually just a wish list of public works interventions now. And they also try to do some colored maps and say zonal changes here and there. Again, politics comes into it. I think the builders in Pune, so we have a huge lobby of people who are called builders, who are building very large projects. And they have a lot of money, and they bribe our municipal corporation engineers left and right. So our main problem in India is our planning. I'm a planner. I started the School of Planning in Andhra. I'm sorry to say that the planning profession in India, the urban planners are more involved in ruining their own plans by taking bribes from developers to change land uses, to change setbacks, to change all kinds of things in favor of development. And that's why I personally don't like to work for developers. I have one close friend who's a developer, Abhishek Loda, and I designed a township for him. He appears to be a very straightforward young man, but you know, developers don't accept no from the government. They don't accept no. My project has 3,000 apartments in it. It's on 100 acres of land. It has a 9-hole golf course. And somehow, Abhishek Loda manages to clear everything. My Azim Premji University is a private university. Again, it started on 100 acres of land. Government doesn't cooperate any place with us. And Mr. Premji is a very honest person. He says, if I start paying bribes to get my plan passed, then there's no end to it. So where you have an honest person in the private sector and a clever person in the private sector, you can see the difference. Both projects started together. We've completed 3,000 housing units at Lode Belmont. Mr. Premji, after 5 years, is just going to start construction now. And it has to do with our management. So, first thing we have to understand is that planning is not design, it's politics. Plans are political documents. Now, we have to talk to, last night I was saying, we need to interact with the chief minister, ministers, we need to find who the 100 richest people in ISIL, talk to them and get them involved. In Pune, we've started involving the elites in planning, trying to tell them, look, you have more to lose in the city than anybody else. You own big factories, you own all kinds of businesses. If this city dies, you're going to be the first people to die because the people living here can shift to some other city. But you can't leave because you're Forbes Marshall, you're Kirloskar, you're Bajaj. These are big companies in Pune that now are taking an interest. So can you find decision makers, stakeholders in the city who could have something over the long run more than an employed person? I don't know. But I think you need to engage the public, and not the masses, but engage decision makers, influential people. We try to, in Pune now, to get politicians when they run for office to say, I'm running for office because I believe in this plan prepared by some architects. Private architects prepare an alternative plan, and we try to get the people standing for election to say, we favor the alternative plan. We favor having parks. We favor having sidewalks. We don't have sidewalks in Pune. I didn't notice many sidewalks here either. But the point is, there's a whole agenda of sidewalks, parks, street lighting, sewage, water supply. Forget the nice plans. We don't have water supply in probably 50% of Pune. So these are the issues architects can start taking up. People are interested in water supply. I saw a huge landslide on the way here. People seeing that landslide, they're going to get interested in proper, sustainable infrastructure development and landslide control. Use these kind of scary events and have a meeting, have a public meeting. Why did that landslide take place? No? Was it because PWD started digging at the bottom of the hill instead of at the right place? Was it because some urban development has taken place which has loosened the soil? Start looking into these things now. It's a very difficult question. Because, see, surprisingly, America is supposed to be free enterprise capitalism, but our town planning rules are so strict, you can't even put your garbage out in the wrong color PVC container. We have, in Gainesville, Florida, where I go, gray containers are for dry things like glass and steel waste. Another thing is for paper, and another thing is for biomass. Blue is for biomass. And they only collect biomass on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and they put the dry things like glass in this, they collect on another day. If you put garbage out on the wrong day, they'll take that thing and throw it all over the front of your yard, and you'll never do it again. So America is run more like a socialist country when it comes to urban planning. You just can't break the law. Somehow I don't know how to bring that culture into India. It's not just ISIL. Every city in India faces this problem. But you know, we met, Ram and I were at a lecture by, what's his name, Satguru Vishwanath? Yes. And he was talking about Mizoram, and he said that about 10 years ago, they organized 15,000 people on every Sunday to go and pick up all the junk on the roads, paper, plastic bottles, and that movement, everybody started doing that, and then the city became clean, and then the same group of people argued, why don't we stop hoardings and signs? And then if there are 15,000 people on Sunday saying we want the signs to go, the politicians will come up with a signage act. So these may be small things like cleaning up the city, controlling signs, and then you can move into deeper things. But I think getting the public involved in urban development is very important. How you do it, I don't know. You have a very strong system of churches here. You could talk to the pastors and ministers of churches and say, get involved. Why don't we tell all the churches then to get involved and keep ISIL clean, have planning in ISIL, etc. So that's a unique facility you have as the churches, which we don't have those kind of organized religions in the rest of India.
Hello sir, myself Shivaji. Last month we had a conference over here.
Put it closer.
Yeah, last month we had a conference over here in the same auditorium discussing majorly on the development of Mizoram and at large about Northeast. As the central government has focused on Act East policies and things like that. So things are gonna come maybe sooner or later. And as you have rightly mentioned, architecture foresees time. So if I connect these two statements and try looking at what tools we have, what methods we have on the planning and designing level. For example, we have LEED and Griha, our own Indian version of a sustainability rating system. So what do you see as an effective method or their effectiveness as a tool? You have completed a IIT Guwahati project, which is a LEED 5-star, Griha 5-star rated project.
IIT Hyderabad, it's a new project.
Okay, IIT Hyderabad. And even IIT Gandhinagar is a Griha rated project. So these projects are coming in like maybe 1 or 2 in like thousands. So they are still at very nascent stage. So if I see it from the perspective of Northeast, so these tools effectively are not based for like a certain context. Like India also has a varied geographic and climatic regions and demographics as well. So what do you see as like 3 ESE aspects of sustainability and how they can be implemented for the like development of this region? Like if we do not want Aizawl to be developed as a concrete jungle as Shimla, which has developed, so what best we can do and how it can be framed?
Okay, keep in mind I'm an architect, and I made a presentation on my designs as an artist, and you're asking me as a policymaker how to rule over Aizawl. So it's not really, you know, I did study planning, I've done plans, but I drifted away from planning into architecture, I think because architecture is more fulfilling in terms of the excitement of building 1 or 2 good buildings. So now that is part of what I thought in Pune. You see, when I was building my own institute, it's called Center for Development Studies and Activities. Now your name is Shivaji, so you could come from Pune, I don't know. It's a good Maharashtrian name. But the point is, I felt at some point, if we can't change the city, can we build, I'm using the word enclaves, pockets of quality. Can we start building little pockets like Suzlon, One Earth, CDSA campus, India House, and people start seeing small examples of what the fabric of the whole city could be. So I think as architects, if we build small campuses, small enclaves, which are nice, people start saying, I would also like to work in a campus like Suzlon, One Earth. I would also like to study in CDSA. I would like to study in Mahindra United World College. I would like to study in Kirloskar Institute. So if you build in your city, maybe 10 or 20 good institutions, people start wanting to copy that. They want to have good environments. But if we don't create even 1 or 2 examples, then what are we talking about? How can people get interested in a good environment? So I don't know, even landscape architects can re-landscape some schools. I think a lot of the schools here, I saw they've just concreted over their open space, and kids play basketball and sports on the concrete. There are no trees in the courtyards now. So maybe even existing projects we can take and advise them, how can you make it a more humane environment? It's a very difficult problem, but when I grew up in America, nobody was interested in urban design. The cities were falling apart. Somehow, over my lifetime, which is not so short, the issues of pedestrianizing spaces, greening spaces, having public transport, these controlling hoardings, controlling trash, controlling garbage, no? These things all started to integrate into the society's value systems. And I think it was because of citizens' movements and because of architectural education. We educated architects to look at alternative environments. I mean, maybe it's worth some of you taking trips, finding out in India, like Delhi Hot is an example in Delhi of an urban intervention where an urban environment was created which is pedestrian, or a private sort of space would be the India Habitat Center. It's a pedestrian area, buildings, pedestrian, parking is underneath, but it's an urban kind of a fabric which is worth copying. And I think we should create examples of what can be copied. Maybe even tell our politicians, you should make a trip to Europe and see these interventions where old cities, old medieval towns which were falling apart, had been recreated by the urban designers. Now, how you do that? I think pedestrianizing streets, putting benches on streets, trained to control automobiles and motorcycles. We have to face these things now. And we still have to make a convenient city, so that it involves careful planning. But again, my work over the last 20 years has been more, I don't mind using the word artistic. And to some extent, I try to create community inclusiveness in campuses that I have total control over. As much as I can, I write articles in the newspaper. I don't know whether any of you write articles. You should write articles about the roads in the city, about the maintenance of roads. I don't think that you're getting enough see, I came here on a road which is embarrassing. If I live in Isle, I would be embarrassed that the road to the university, the so-called shortcut, is such a bad road. Somebody should write an article. We build a national university, the number 51 out of 3,500 university, and you can't even come there without going down a worse than a village road. Somebody should write an article about roads. Somebody should write an article about how poor people are living in the city, about density, about traffic congestion, about parking problems. Now, that's something you can immediately start doing, is getting into the media. And you have your forum, so the forum becomes a body which can hold press conferences and hand out an article at a press conference, and people will publish them. So I think there are many ways that you can get involved with the public, but definitely you as an individual can never change anything. Only as a group you can change things.
Okay, sir, we'll break for a while. We'll have a lunch break at the moment. We'll continue with the discussion, informal discussion at lunchtime, and we'll continue with that. Anyway, we'll have a book signing. Before that, we have a small gift, a memento, to hand over. Our president, Mrs. Ladang Swadi, will hand over the memento. After this, it will be followed by a book signing, the author book signing. I think our professor here is the right person to come to India, I believe. He's quite bold, quite strong, quite tall, and to deal with this diverse society, I think he's the right person. I think we have quite a lot to follow from him. So we'll continue with that part with the question and answers in the lunchtime, lunch break. And we'll continue this with the sponsors presentation in the afternoon. That will be done by the Tata Tiscon. And I believe Richard Bello will be joining us in the afternoon later on. Anyway, whoever wants to buy the book, we can queue up over here. Our professor will be signing it, and that will be followed by the lunch. So first, we'll hand over the memento. Oh, we have one more gift, yes.
The presentation. Okay, that is fine.
We have a gift for architect Ram Prasad.
Then
Yeah. Oh, wait.
okay, that means that you'll be coming tomorrow again, right? Okay. So
Yeah. If anyone wants to buy it, can queue over here. The book that led us to young architects, it can.
yeah, it's LR and then KIM Kimat. LR Kimat. My full name is this. So it's
No,
like
just tell me what you. I'm going to write to who?
LR
LR.
then KIM.
Capital?
No. Then
See, that's how it's the LR. You wrote that.
yeah, it's LR and then KIM Kimat. LR Kimat. My full name is this. So it's
No,
like
just tell me what you. I'm going to write to who?
LR
LR.
then KIM.
Capital?
No. Then
See, that's how it's the
Sorry for the delay. We've been changing the laptops every now and then. Good afternoon, everyone. Everyone looks more handsome and prettier after lunch. Now we're having a small introduction for our architects here, Richard Bello. A warm welcome to this event this evening. Welcome, sir. We'll be continuing with the audio-visual introduction of architect Richard Bello. May I request Emmeline to present it.
Richard Bello. An architect by profession, Richard Bello is keen to provide avenues to promote art and culture while protecting the environment. In 2002, he set up Zynorik with Atto to impart training and employable skills to the local youth of Nagaland. Through the organization, he aims to inspire and motivate youth to protect the environment and create awareness about Nagaland's art and culture. A socially concerned architect, he believes in a philosophy of designing buildings to comply with the principles of social, economic, and ecological sustainability. Richard Bello sees bamboo as a material of the future and is currently doing many bamboo structure projects and research and development activities and trainings related to bamboo handicraft items. He was awarded Bamboo Pioneer Award by World Bamboo Organization, Young Designer Award 2012 by Indian Architect and Builders, and Balipara Naturenomics Award 2015 by Balipara Foundation. His office, Zynorik, has 7 architects and 4 civil engineers and is actively engaged in various government projects as architectural consultants. It also provides architectural services and conducts skill-based training through their own wing, Zynorik Initiatives. Please welcome Richard Bello.
Thanks so much, Mizoram Architect Forum and Mizoram University for inviting me. Actually, this is my first time to Aizawl, to Mizoram also. And my bamboo journey started way back in 2005. Simon was there along with us when we had the first interaction with bamboo. First of all, I want to address the crowd, just assuming that all of us are still students. I came back from Bangalore to Nagaland because in 2002, because I wanted, there was a lot of, for our youth, the dependency on government jobs and all this thing was becoming alarmingly frightening, and on the other end, it was the dangers of earthquakes and all the problems this region is facing. So just wanted to come and see. It's not like I thought I'll just come back and stay for 5 years and just see the situation and move back, because I knew that at least for Nagaland, we don't have a strong private economy, so all the jobs that, for an architect to survive, we had to be dependent only on government jobs. So now, so the thing is, for an architect, before I start my slide, I just wanted to share certain thoughts. For an architectural student, what differentiate an architect? When we came back, we had this conflict sometimes with civil engineers, and because civil engineers had already controlled the whole PWD system, and for an architect to come in, they were like, why do we need architects? And civil engineers, architects also were, we were studying for 5 years, why we need civil engineers? And in that conflict always happened. And the thing is, the reality is, an architect is not only a person who is designing building, but he has a burden, a moral, a social conscience, the burden of that which the civil engineer does not have. I don't see all the architect students passing out here becoming architect, just designing building, but you would have gained a thought process that will create a change. Now, initially, it took, when we, for our survival, for my survival as an architect, we had to, the hype is that when the moment you start your own office, you'll do any design you want. It does not happen that way. For our survival, we have to design whatever people want. But as we grew, as we slowly, as we start seeing things, we cannot help but getting aware of the situation. Just now I was driving up to Aizawl, I saw those landslides. I saw the same problem back in Nagaland. Whenever April-May happens, we have cyclonic storms. Then we have the scares of earthquake. When my wife gave delivery. The strong earthquake that hit during that April, we were in the hospital. This hospital was designed by an American designer, an architect. They said it is earthquake proof, but below the hospital, everything, there's major landslide happening. The whole hospital is going down. It can be earthquake proof, but maybe it's not landslide proof. Then recently, one guy just built, between Kohima and Dimapur highway, he built a petrol pump, and there was a mild landslide. So what he did is he invested 40-50 lakhs and put up a huge RCC retaining wall. This year of all the years, it had a very different type of rainfall. And then now, 1 week before the petrol pump could be inaugurated, the whole thing came down. So it's not, RCCs maybe may give temporary thing relief, but it's also a difficult thing. And what he wanted out of his embarrassment, the person really wanted to remove that structure in one night, but till now they are still trying to remove it. When we look at sustainable practices, sustainable building, we are also looking at, in terms of landslide, how much of materials can be salvaged, how can poor communities can salvage all the materials and rehabilitate, use the material again to build somewhere. So there are so many issues like, so the thing is addressing to the younger crowd. Like in Nagaland also we have this, when our own local Naga boys, they go and work under people, within 2 years they want to start their own business. Even architects, every architect freshly graduate wants to just start their own firm and start designing right away. It's like by the time you have final year, you are almost tada window and you're just raring to go, you're just waiting for that client to come and leave. But the thing is, I would suggest, take it slow. We get ready to work under people for 20 years. There is no hurry. The moment you start hurrying, for me, because that whole social thing happened, I spend about 50% of my time also training the local youth, and I tell them in various fields of livelihood, self-employment. We don't want especially when our Northeast boys and girls go out, they keep complaining people ill-treat us. But the reality is we don't mingle well with others. We just go ready to fight. When Northeast people get together, ready to fight with other people. So people also don't like us. It's not that they started hating us. It's because we started in that. So for me, the thing is, how to generate self-employment. Now, there is now we cannot stop social media and all this internet access that you have. In our Angami dialect, we have something called Kesi and Kesi Kele. Kesi means knowledge. Kesi Meko means people with knowledge. Kesi Kele means, Kesi is knowledge, but Kele means thinking. Kesi Kele Meko means people who have knowledge, but who does the thinking. So there is Kesi Meko and Kesi Kele Meko. Kesi Meko, knowledgeable people. Kesi Kele Meko, people with knowledge, but people who think. So right now, Facebook or WhatsApp can destroy one whole generation. Overnight, you can just have a rumor spreading, and people will just tomorrow morning they'll just create a roadblock, and people will be killed because information is moving so fast that we don't have time to absorb also. That is actually, again, that's a big concern. Even in our own land, without context, without awareness, if a new material is happening somewhere, you would just immediately blindly go and use that material without understanding that, okay, maybe that might not work in our situation. We don't know. So there is that awareness, that consciousness, and then appreciation of our own. We have to, sometimes we totally disregard our traditional building, how our grandfathers used to build buildings. Even in Mizoram, you would see your traditional structures. With what context they were building that. We have to again take a journey back, and for any college, right? I feel Mizoram University is in a very good position to introduce a proper curriculum for the students. I feel there is no architectural education specific for the region so far anywhere being offered anywhere in India, and this is such a beautiful part of the country. The whole Northeast is so diverse and very colorful, and people were, when earthquake hit in 1950, we had almost 8.7 magnitude hitting us on August 15th. There was very less casualty because people were still living in traditional structures. If you see Japanese architecture, how they survived these massive earthquakes, you would see that it's because of their carpentry and understanding of earthquakes. Contrary to our understanding of structures, they have just only one single structural column, which now is being transferred to pylons and all these skyscrapers. The rest, the structural member is only one with the two XY beam in XY direction, and that holds the whole structure together. So when the building moves, the pylon moves in an opposite direction and hits the building and then push it back to place. So there are two things that happens. If we see our traditional structure, I'm not very aware of how, I've not done a study on Mizoram, but in Nagaland also, people were aware of earthquakes and all, and they would tie buildings in such, and the time for harvesting the right kind of wood, and all this thing was taken care of. But because we did not have a script, it was only handed down orally. Now with the new information that is coming in, we are not able to hold on to that. So for us, we are doing a personal, trying to document that. And that they are, one second. So sometime for an architectural student or a young architect starting, we, instead of, sometimes that is, we are more worried about what people are doing outside. We are more worried about whether we are reaching USA or not in terms of architecture, or whether we are reaching there, we are reaching somewhere. But the thing is, the architecture as the education or the thought, it's a, I feel it's a kind of a discipline of thought only. It's the whole process, if you follow the architectural process properly, initially we will start being very critical about everything as a student. Oh, I like this, I like that, you write something, and you start forming opinions on everything. Sometimes that is also scary because you don't know whether the opinions that you are forming is the right way of looking about it. After a certain stage in your architectural career, when I started, I thought I'll be doing anything I want. I don't know. I didn't want to call anyone sir, and I just wanted to. I wanted to sketch something and let people come and take my design or not. But later, as we get into the architectural field, we get to understand that okay, for one level, an architect also is like he provides people what they want. We are trying to have a communication between the client and us. In metro cities, maybe I feel it's easier to design than in places like, I don't know Mizoram, but in places like Nagaland, where we don't have a lifestyle. People are rich just because they have access to government funds. And the building they want is what they see in ZTV, or anything. Tomorrow their whole mind can change again overnight. Someone shows them some building again. They want something like this, like that. In that kind of situation, you can't blame people. So they want buildings only to show that they are rich, and because they had not access to that type of building when they were growing up. So it's not a very mentally challenging thing. It becomes easier, like you tell them, oh, you try to go to internet and Google some images and show me some buildings that you like, and then I'll work around that and then get back to you. So it's these are some of the challenges, and but after some time you start getting aware. As an architect, if you are thinking or if you are approaching it the right way, you start noticing so many things. And our role is to see, even not just limited to the building, but to see what are the social changes that's happening around us. For students, some of the students, like the university also will have this pressure after some time. We have been discussing that for quite some time in Nagaland also. Even if we bring out more architecture students, how do we create a market to absorb the students? How do we create that awareness for people not to come and look at architects and say, give me a quick sketch. How do we make people pay architectural fees? And then, so a whole lot of problems that plague our region. And for me, initially, maybe 5-6 years back, I used to take interns on regular interval, but now I stopped. I started refusing to even take interns into my office. I only take very insistent people after it's like a grueling process. But the thing is, the problem is, it's because I feel the quality of education has dropped drastically. I don't know whether the semester system did any good for this thing, for the profession. I don't know, like, whether students, architectural students, are being trained to be ready for the architectural industry, or are they just being trained and left somewhere? First of all, maybe most of them who pass out maybe are good with, maximum are good with architectural visualization on 3D, maybe SketchUp and certain softwares, but most of them don't have proper knowledge of working drawings, or in a competitive, in a professional working environment, it becomes difficult, and even design basics are missing in most cases, even from good colleges. So these are, and then we like to, one of the issue, like with architecture or any creative field related, unless you force yourself to develop a very passionate stance. If you are looking to working in an office from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. job, if you are not ready to like just keep working till you drop, this is a very competitive. Architecture is, in that sense, if commercially, it's a very competitive job, and so that brings me to that necessity for a curriculum, necessity for people to look at how the region-specific architectural course can be designed. It's not. I don't encourage everyone to get into bamboo or anything, but how we can work out earthquakes, taking into issues like earthquakes, fires, landslide. We have a cyclonic wind. We have transportation issues in far-flung areas. There are so many villages without even proper bridge connectivity, which could be easily solved with local materials. The issues of skilled workers, and even not having building materials coming in and just uprooting our village structure and then putting in a new material. When Nagaland government started building tourist lodges in all the villages, they built very ugly RCC structures in all most of the tourist villages. And the tourists who came were very offended. They said that we have not traveled miles paying money to come and stay in these buildings. We would rather love to, if you clean up one house, we would love to live in, stay inside that and click photo and then send it home also. We don't want to be sitting in these tourist lodges and all. So the damage has already been done in most of this thing. But now it's about intervening. Who would intervene? Who but the architect would intervene in that situation? So these are some of the background. I know it's a very boring thing just after lunch to be listening to that, but I just wanted to set this one before. So the first part, I just wanted to show the different structural, the different traditional structures that exist. Not all, these are just a few of them, but the traditional material, these are not all photos, these are photos that still recent photos only. And if you see, people were living in this type of structures, and they're still in some of the remote villages, they're still living in this form. And when we intervene, without studying, we just remove this form completely and just get into give them a totally different type of design. And so these are the textures, the pattern, the form, how, then this is in the Angami region where the whole story is like carved out on wood, the story of the village. And so this is I call this traveling at the speed of life. They don't have extra funding coming from the government, so how much ever money is available from the village, that time only they build at that pace. And something like whatever developed out of necessity and patterns and different things. If you visit even your own villages, you'll see things that slows you down to a point where you feel people are. Right now everyone is in a hurry. Everyone because of digital and digital technology. So this is an Angami basket. So the guy who weaves it slowly, he sits down and weaves each and every. They say it would. If we were in now our generation, nobody would want to take it up because everyone is in a hurry. Nobody has the time to sit down and. Even if you see people not doing anything, if you call them, hey, why don't you come and work with me? Then he'll say, no, right now I'm busy with something, I'll let you know after 2 months. Or something, he would not be doing anything, but still he's busy with something. So this is when I thought after some time, because I came back to Nagaland hoping to train people or work with my own peers, because we had this menace of that underground political problem also, and now everything is totally messed up right now because everyone is used to easy money now. So it is just that at a certain point of time you feel either you are not relevant anymore, or the world is not relevant to you, or maybe you just want to quit everything and then do something else, or what architecture has brought. It is just at this point of time, sometimes it's like it's just a make-believe thing maybe, but after some time we realize that it becomes a kind of a calling. you have to become a shooting star. Even if people think that there's no use for you also, you have to, everyone, I feel, everyone has to take responsibility. For me, my major concern is this region. If an earthquake is going to hit, or if some natural calamities is going to hit, then we are going in for a very bad situation. So this is a point where I also, instead of leaving, 2005 I made up my mind to leave Nagaland, but that time because bamboo happened, and bamboo I felt could connect me to the local population. I was convinced at one point of time that a poor man and an architect has no business, because unless you are rich enough to build a house, you will not come and meet an architect. So the architect reaching out to the poor person would just become like a charity kind of thing. So the connection, for me, I found through bamboo, where I could use bamboo to connect to the villages. I could use this bamboo tool to interact with even the far-flung villages of Nagaland, and in that sense. So this was 2005. Simon Velez had come to Nagaland, and he conducted a high-end structural workshop. Sammy was there with us. We all, then in between, this is John Hardy. John Hardy also visited us. We were lucky to have Jeffrey Trudeau of Bamboo Living Hawaii also visiting us in Nagaland. And Vijaya Made, sadly he passed away just about a month back, but he's considered as one of the top landscape designer also. So when they came and when they showed us what impact happened with Simon Velez visiting Nagaland, was the government mentality change. We, for Nagas, we are so excited when people from outside comes and tells us something. If we keep telling the government also, they will not take it seriously. But when someone says, this is how you guys should really focus on, then the government changed its mindset, sat down and brought out the Nagaland Bamboo Mission, Nagaland Bamboo Policy, and then we started the Bamboo Mission. Then invited all architects. No architect wanted to become a bamboo architect because there's no money in that, and department pays only 2 lakh for 1 whole year of activity. So, but since we had participated in the workshop, I felt bamboo was something I could use to address the issue of the region, and also connect the people, the rural people also. So we started this journey, and one thing why bamboo never took off well in India is because all the time they are propagating a species called Dendrocolummus strictus. And Dendrocolummus strictus is not exactly a structural bamboo, if we were to use for construction. But because at the helm of all this promotion was a guy who had done his thesis and his PhD on this, and on Dendrocolummus strictus, and he had worked out so many space frames, so many joints, that he would not refuse to let go of that species, and he would just ignore Bambusa balcoa as a... so when one of the important thing is, if you choose the right species, in Nagaland we have about 40 species, out of which 28 is local to Nagaland, and I'm sure Mizoram will also have a lot of bamboo species where we have not done proper study on which is a structural bamboo. But the advantage with using Bambusa balcoa, that is the top left corner, so is that even with a smaller section, we can span large distances, and it makes the work easy. Sometimes different types of bamboo can be used, from your latiflorus to your gigantus bamboo for ornamental purposes. But this really so these are all different types of bamboo, but the structural bamboo is on top. And you can see that is towards the right is the structural bamboo, the bamboo sabakua. Then this was from another region. It's a kind of a Dendroculmus family only, but this one has got the notes are so fine that it can be used as an ornamental species only. So even department did not have an actual name for this species. So like this, even in Mizoram, if you look around, you would find so many bamboo species with value. Now this was, you can see Sammy. I just put that photo just to show Sammy, to remind him again. So this was a time when we had done that workshop with Simone Velez and the fish mouth, In my structures, these days I avoid this fish mouth because I'm working on structures that can be easily dismantled, and the fish mouth is a kind of a more permanent structure, fixture. This is the facility that we have in Dimapur, the Bamboo Resource Center, where we are managing. Government of Nagaland has been kind enough to give me the facility to manage a part of it, especially the bamboo treatment and all this. So we do all the prefabrication here. What we are trying to do is we are training our local youth and giving them to architects, so that architects anywhere in India can do any design on bamboo. Still, we will give you the skilled workers, and also we give them the raw materials if they need structural bamboos. We do our own bamboo boards, wall board, floorboard ourselves. Then this was the first structure. This was designed as just a temporary structure for an exhibition, but then they wanted it to be more semi-permanent, and it's still existing. And this is a structure that we did just to study different roofing material type, whether an asphalt sheet would hold well or an aluminum sheet, different type of this thing. But it did not. Even this turned out to be relatively more expensive than using CGI sheet. But then this was a structure just for a government resort, which they used bamboo. And this one was, again, some of our first construction. You saw that finish, this thing. The problem working with government is, by the time the money is sanctioned, the time we get to bill is about 1 month. And by then, everybody is in a hurry. There's no quality, no control of this thing, and we cannot blame the government also. That's how the paperwork happens. So all these structures were, that other structure is in Dimapur, this one is in Kohima. We did for the Hornbill Festival. And these are wayside amenities which we develop. I think Nagaland is one of the few states in India which government invests in bamboo structure. So we have all these wayside amenities and gazebos built in all the districts, and in a way train the local workers also to follow this type of construction. So this was again for the Northeast Agri Expo, where we took the Mithun's head, Naga, this buffalo, and then constructed some structures. Then what happened was, there was this issue. Till then we were doing the estimation ourselves, the architects, and we wanted to transfer this knowledge to the workers to do the estimates themselves, because now we had to empower them to start being able to get a calculation out. So the only way to do that is to let them work effectively on the model, sit down and work. So whenever we do conduct trainings with the workers, the first part of the training is maybe 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. It's only about them understanding architectural drawings and learning how to make models. After they make models, they do all the estimates themselves. So this is a new structure coming up. That is a bridge model which we did, and we actually went and we raised money online through Facebook, and then went and built this structure at the site. So in that instance, social media was quite useful. Actually, this is this structure. This was sanctioned by KRIPA. This is they work with drug addicts and alcoholic, and the whole structure was to be completed because they had money only for 1 month. So the whole structure we built within 1 month, but we could not finish the wall. So we ended up at a point, but they were able to. They did everything. We built this structure, and we ended up here when the fund got exhausted and the time ran out. We could not feed them anymore. There was a central ministry, but it is located in. So we built an organic demo farm around it. Now slowly we're building that up. This is a structure in IIM Mumbai. There's a company called Canon Bamboos for whom we supply the workers and the raw material. So different type of, this is a structure for a cafeteria in Nagpur. So some rough design. So this one, what we are doing right now is, this is a prefabricated bamboo structure where the design is given by the client, and we prefabricate everything, and then we send the material along with the workers and install it at site. So this installation is going to happen in Hyderabad. So this was the process of construction, and then so here we are using fiber cement boards. This is another construction. I don't have the end. This is called Angya. It's a kind of a museum type of thing, a shop where we are displaying products brought from the border regions. So some of the furniture, bamboo play areas. This was a wayside amenity. Initially, we designed it, and then we want it to be just a wall where inside people would be actively working with the traditional crafts and all. But every time we brought our traditional crafts people to work, they would end up drinking and fighting and started stopping vehicle on the road. So we converted it into a kind of a restaurant now with the craft gallery happening inside. So this is the space which we have built. We added a balcony outside, and this is like bamboo cafeteria. It was a 1 month training, and we constructed that structure. Some we did for clients here and there, some structures. This is a bridge. We took a model of an existing, and that one in the middle is a traditional bridge. So we just took that model, and then we fabricated the whole thing. It was just it was a part of a workshop, and then this is what we did. And then this is truly, this is NIT classroom. The boys whom we have trained in 2005. Good thing is they are still working actively in bamboo, and they themselves go and execute these projects on contract basis. So we gave them this thing, a kind of a layout, and they did this as per the requirement of the. So it was quite an achievement for NIT, for us to get the classrooms into NIT. And we did some bamboo. The team, we got them to do some bamboo charcoal kiln also. In the process, we also developed bamboo toys for certain section because some of our workers are quite talented also, and sometimes when we don't have projects, they would just sit idle. So we got them to do some. Then this was my office. We, as a training, we just got the raw workers only. We did the, so we at least this one, since it's our own monitor, we had time to work on. So we brought it to this level. The idea was why I built my office with bamboo is it's a two-story structure. To push bamboo into a contemporary form where people can say, okay, at least I can have a contemporary building also, just to change the mindset of the common people. So once they started seeing that it can be applied to, everybody wanted their last floor, the penthouse floor, to be built with bamboo. There's a huge demand now in Nagaland too. So it's still good for us. And this front door, I just visualized if Nagas had not been fighting every time, and if we had developed into a civilization, maybe this might be the wall of the palace, and then culminating into the gate. No? So just play around. This one was what we did was we took here 3 of us collaborated. Jonathan Wright was he's a cane expert. Fatima Alvaro was she also was a bamboo architect, and 3 of us came together, and then we built this structure in Dimapur using a species called chimono. This was one of the small bamboo which people did not find any use for it in structural application or bamboo. So we just wanted to use these relatively weaker bamboos and then see how we can transform it into. So it's still whatever we did. Even the first structure we did. Everyone, the moment we talk about the bamboo, everyone asks. The question number 1 is like they say, how long does it last? It will last as long as you keep replacing the spoiled ones. So the advantage with bamboo is you can replace any structure. The main, the roadside, the wayside amenity, which I converted later into a restaurant, had 3 of the main beams broken, because when I told the worker to put 2 beams together, they put the 2 beams without touching one another. So the top broke. We replaced that 2 years later. And this is quite good for hilly area people who are very lazy, want to replace it 2 years later. So bamboo works well because it does not collapse immediately. So what happens is like even in the Kisama, the bamboo structure where we host the Hornbill Festival, we have there we did not go into the treatment was all done manually. All the other buildings later we treat with vacuum. We have a vacuum impregnated chamber where we do the mechanical treatment. But the initial process, we did everything manually, and so far we have only replaced 30, maybe 35% of bamboo there, even in the manual one. For the later, our sourcing of bamboo became more organized. So once we started getting quality bamboo, none of the structures which are built later on have not replaced even a single member so far. So even this one we did not replace any member, and these were some of the this is a structure that's coming up here. I'm creating a living architecture kind of thing. The bamboo becomes a scaffold, and I have 2-3 different species of bamboo that's going to grow around it, and vines that creates a kind of a walk-through gallery. This one, we call it the wild duck. It was a 1 month, we built it in 1 month, just to address 2-3 issues. One is, if you see our region, if you see the northeast region, because of landslide or whatever, we end up spending too much money in RCC construction, and maximum of the money goes into the foundation. What we did here was we constructed A-frames, and we did not spend anything, means very little on the foundation. We just took a hewn pipe and just pack it with the rock, and then we just push the bamboo into the hewn pipe, and then we build the structure. Keeping in mind a simple principle that it has an A-frame to it. So even if wind comes, we still had the A-frame supporting the structure. So we design it, disguise it like design elements and all that. We could use these structures. So it was just a triangular thing. And if you see here, we just had the rock packing, and we just build up a base, and the hewn pipe goes. And this is keeping in mind that if at any given point of time, even if certain structural members, due to a bad quality of bamboo or something, if it needs replacing, we could replace. So in my design, what I do is I try to make sure that if at any point of time, because it's an organic material, we don't know at times, we might not be able to check all the quality of bamboo that is brought to us. So if it needs replacing, we can replace. So we have done it. So we got the whole structure laying into a frame that for our situation where if landslide happens, we cannot protect the building, but we can salvage all the material. So all the material that is there, even the wall, everything is screwed onto the structure. These are the materials which we have used is fiber cement board. And so this was the structure we did. It's a restaurant for one of we are creating a kind of an eco village. So this is the space. And we did not remove any trees. We just found a triangular space, and we thought, and there was a pond next to it, and we designed it in the form of a duck flying off. So, and using our own bamboo design, when Nagaland government asked us to design the Secretariat gate, they did not agree to us using bamboo. So we used steel, but in that form we made a. So these are the different concepts, and some of them are completed. These structures are all completed. And this one was for Nagaland University, but when we were just about to start work, the Vice Chancellor got transferred, so the project stalled. Then these are the prefabricated cottages which we are doing. From 2017, we will be on order. We are going to send the boys to any architect who wants to. They can give us the design. We can send the raw material and the workers also. Or if you have the raw material, if you have the raw material, then we can send the workers to work with you. So this is just something which we have been doing. We are very bad at documenting, so our projects have not been able to show some photographs. But tomorrow, I was just setting this thing for tomorrow. Tomorrow, when we have the workshop, I just felt everyone looks at bamboo from a different perspective. I visited. I also went to Vietnam, went to Bali also, John Hardy's Green School, and all this. Everyone has got different approach, and for me, my first challenge was to forget about architectural design at the moment. Is to raise up skilled workers who can start working within our own context. Without that worker, so I spent the moment from 2005 onwards, we started training the boys, and then these people, even in when John Hardy came to Kohima, he was very kind and good enough to bring his laptop and show me everything, how they also work. And that's the same thing that happens there. The people who work in bamboo, the people who work, they have to be motivated enough, because it's at the end of the day, whether you get a good design or a bad design depends on, because bamboo is an arrogant material. I call bamboo as a sexy, arrogant lady walking with high heels. But if you understand bamboo and allow it to do whatever it wants, it's very beautiful, and we have to understand how the material behaves. If you build bamboo structure short, it does not look grand because it's a vertical material. It's got something which architects, as you work on it, you can discover slowly. For me, I like the rustic part. I try to leave it a bit rustic. In Vietnam, they try to engineer bamboo into very geometrical, very beautiful geometrical forms. For us, even in Nagaland, when we do our wood carving and all, I've seen very skilled wood carvers. They stop short at certain point of time intentionally, giving it a rustic touch, giving it a very so. For me, the approach that I take is allowing not the architect imposing too much onto the design also, but allowing also the skilled worker to develop a sense of designing, working together, bringing out something once we have the concept. So it is important to understand that part. So the workshop tomorrow, I was thinking, I wanted to set the tone, just a rough idea of how we would go about. If you have a design in mind, if you have something, I will still leave it for discussion, but the moment you shift to bamboo, in my office, all the 7 architects who are working with me, none of them want to come near bamboo, because they find drafting it out in 3D and all this thing is so irritating. It's like when we were manually drafting in college, and so the lecturer says, no, you go and do everything again, and you have to start the sheet from again. So in bamboo, since we are to understand bamboo design, we have to look at it from a 3D perspective all the time, because understanding joineries is the most difficult part in bamboo. But once you understand the basics of that, if you understand how the joinery works, because here we have to take 2 things in consideration. When you're working with concrete, you never worry about how joinery works, but in bamboo, you have to understand that sometimes some sections, any section would need to be replaced, and you have to remove it and you have to put it back. It's not that it's this thing, but it's compulsory that way. But this is one of the approach. So understanding how bamboo joinery works, where bamboo fails, so the group, whomever you decide, I would want you to come up with a conceptual idea, maybe even tonight, something to discuss, and which you can think that it will be challenging, or it will be the problem. What happens is, like, once there was a group of architects from Charles Korea Foundation who came and did a workshop with us in Dimapur, and the problem is the architect who was leading them did not allow us to she was the one who wanted to teach the student who was coming with her, so they did not allow us to intervene into her, into what they were doing, and they had come all the way to Nagaland just to get a workshop thing done, going on their own. But there were so many, in that during that time they decided on a wrong model and they could not finish anything in time. So they just ended up doing just a frame, and nobody could learn anything from that. The idea, if we were to go in for a live bamboo workshop, it would take us, minimum it would take us, even 10 days is short, but that's why I opted for a model workshop where you can sit and sketch. But the thing is, everyone make this mistake when you sit and sketch bamboo. If you go into the latest architectural logs and you see all these wavy mesh forms, and suddenly you want to push bamboo into that direction, and immediately you want to just play it and make all these wavy forms and architectural forms, base frames and all. I feel it's not wrong, but I'm just saying, as you work more and more with bamboo, you'll find that the bamboo has got some other beauty, and it is not, you'll find that by not pushing it too much into that, by just trying to twist bamboo into an unnatural shape which is not used to. When I went to Vietnam and Bali, I saw that the traditional architecture was very much similar like ours, Mizoram, Nagaland. It's that the Western people who had set up their offices from New Zealand and Australia to Vietnam and Indonesia and all, they brought in the Western sense of order and form. So then, because they were catering to a Western clientele, the whole thing became very refined. But if we could have taken it the other way, we could have taken, instead of getting refined, we could have taken it to a rustic form, or we could have understood. So there's so much of scope left in bamboo. So make sure that you have something which we can, if the model comes out good enough, you can have a life, even after I leave, you can try to construct it in the campus or something, so have something, have a design that is executable. And I just, tomorrow, I would, the designs, different options, I will leave it to you. It's not like you do this, you do that. When you do the workshop, when you do the model, at that time I will just share what is, for me it's a learning process, for us also it's a journey. We are going to, by February we are going in for 3 very big bamboo construction. One I just showed the model there, it's a 70 feet by 22, about 32 feet in span, a huge hall, a long house. I think Mizoram has a tradition of a long house. So these are buildings which we can use in our context. But the thing is, so the first question is how long it will last, and the second is what about fire? Everyone is like fire. So we are tackling that issue. If you were to burn bamboo sabako, bamboo, and if you were to burn wood would burn faster than the bamboo sabako. So no, structural bamboos are very, in a sense, it performs quite well against fire. But now the new technologies come, phosphorus. There are certain treatment that can be done to make it fire retardant. And so tomorrow would be I would have like to have one small presentation that is specifically on bamboo. Understanding of bamboo and how our actual workshop goes. So this is it for now. I don't know how the meeting is, how the thing is worked out, but if you want to ask me questions, you can ask me. Tomorrow would be specific. I don't know how many of you would turn up tomorrow, but the bamboo part, the technical component of bamboo, we can handle it tomorrow also. But anything you would like to ask me?
Thank you, Mr. Richard Bello, sir, for the fine presentation. It's interesting to see how bamboo have been extensively used for building construction. As a token of our gratitude, we would like to present a more memento, which will be presented by our senior-most architect, Architect George Lazuya, Chief Architect, PWD, Government of Mizoram. May I request George Lazuya to come up to the stage. Now, before winding off with this program, let me read out for tomorrow's program. 10 to 10:30 will be a registration, and 10:30 to 10:45 will be a chairman's address. After that, we have an HOD address, and like we know, workshop will be done by Architect Richard Bello in the morning and afternoon program, and lunch will be served here. And let us all dress appropriately. We'll be having a workshop behind the stage. So I hope everyone comes back tomorrow with the same attendance. From a morning lecture and presentation, what I've learned is that culture-based design is the strongest concept in design and most convincing for a public building. Okay, then anyway, I'll sum up with that. Anyway, thank you. Once again, Professor Benninger, his associate architect Ram Prasad, and architect Richard Bello, for accepting our humble request. We hope and pray that we reach home safely, safe and sound for tomorrow's journey, long journey back home. And I believe everyone is having a good time today. Thank you, everyone. And dinner will be served at the guest house here in this campus. I request all the participants to stay for the dinner. Thank you.